Hey everybody, what's up? We're back for another coffee and astronomy, or you can call it caffeine, I guess, and astronomy if you want to. However you choose to take in your caffeine, whether it's through coffee or Coca-Cola, whatever beverage you're having tonight. I know I'm having some coffee, which you can't see because it's down. I don't want to pour it on my computer. I know Mr. Hummel's got his coffee
I
on
already
deck.
drank it. I finished it.
He already
Yeah,
drank
I was
it, so this
thirsty.
is
Yeah,
post
I'm ready
coffee.
now. Yeah, you can,
Yeah, so I'm just now getting started. So it's gonna be a good one tonight. But here we are. It's a Thursday night on January 14th. It's 2021, y'all. Can y'all believe it? It sounds like a futuristic date, like you'd see in the movies, like 2021. It's crazy. But here we are, and we got an awesome little thing for y'all tonight. Stephen Hummel is going to take us on a guided tour of the winter constellations and the winter night sky objects right now, because that's where we're at. It's winter time. We've been doing these all year, and we've been doing them in the summertime and seeing all kinds of cool stuff. And we got some awesome winter objects for y'all, which is going to be fun. So let's get to some intros, and then we'll get to some object viewing, which we've got one up here. But before we get to the objects, we got to get to the most important people of the hour, Mr. Stephen Hummel. There he is.
Oh, yeah.
How you
Hello,
doing, Stephen?
everybody. I'm great. I'm doing great. If you're not familiar with me, I'm at McDonald Observatory, which is in far west Texas, and behind me is a 16-inch telescope. Here it is in operation um, at night. If you can put that up there, if you don't mind. There you go. Yeah, so it's a 16-inch telescope I'm using. I've got a color camera mounted on the back of it tonight. So we'll have some color views. Downside of the color camera compared to a black and white one is that it is less sensitive. So we'll be sticking to some of the brighter things tonight. But I don't really specifically have an agenda of what to look at tonight. Really, it is up to you guys to kind of suggest what you guys want to look at. I definitely have some highlights, and I definitely know a lot of cool objects to look at. But yeah, it's kind of up to you. So feel free to suggest things as we go along. The weather tonight, I was a little worried about clouds. In fact, I almost canceled this. But as it turned out, the cirrus clouds kind of parted. There's still a little bit out there, but they're not going to give us too much trouble. So I think we're going to be okay in terms of the weather. But yeah, got the dark skies here at McDonald Observatory, and here is a live view. This is live from the telescope right now, and this is a bright star in the Pleiades, also known as the Seven Sisters. The star is called Merope, Merope. And what we're seeing is called the Merope Nebula, which is all that wispy stuff around it. And you may have seen the Pleiades before. It's a pretty famous star cluster, but with our telescope, we have a pretty small field of view, so we can really only see a really small slice of it. I don't know, Will, maybe you could show a wide field shot from somewhere else here in a minute, if you could find one. Yeah. But we're going to zoom in on this one little particular spot right in there. Right, real close in there.
What's in there? Is it like a little treasure in there? A little nugget of goodness?
A little nugget of nebula right in there. You'll see right next to the star, almost kind of hiding in its glare, is this little blob, and those lines will go away in a second. This
Amazing.
this is called the various names, but that's sometimes called the Merope Nebula. Sometimes it refers to the broader stuff around it. But it's a cloud of gas, and it is being ionized and stripped away from the intense heat and pressure from this very bright B-class star. It's a very energetic star, much brighter than the sun, and that bit of gas happens to be getting close to the star. And a lot of times when you see a nebula, a big cloudy thing, the star formed in that nebula, because a lot of nebulas are star-forming regions. Not this case. You used to think that was the case with the Pleiades, of which this is a member, but it's actually not really what's happening. We now know that the stars of the cluster of the Pleiades, so this one, there's another bright one off to the left, another one kind of out of shot on the top right. They're moving through space kind of as a big family, And as they move through space, they have encountered this cloud of gas, or you could say the cloud of gas has encountered the cluster. Either way, it's technically correct. And so they're kind of passing through this dusty neighborhood, but it's not actually associated with the formation of the stars, which is usually the case when you see stars swaddled in nebulosity. But yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm actually keep talking because I'm pulling up a wide shot of it that I took.
All right, I'm gonna keep talking. Yeah.
Well, like tell us, Stephen. Because we're still in the hello phase. Tell us where we can find you online. I know we can find you at the McDonald Observatory, which don't confuse that with McDonald's, the restaurant. This is McDonald Observatory in Deep West Texas. It's much better.
University of Texas at Austin, but yeah, in West Texas. You can find me on Instagram, Hummel Stephen is the name, or at Hummel Stephen. And you can see some of the many pictures I've taken there. You can see one I posted of this particular object from this telescope, just a little deeper exposure, a couple days ago. So yeah, you can find me there. You can also find Will, if you haven't found him already, on Instagram as Deep Sky Dude, on various things. And yeah, there you go. There you got the wider shot of the Pleiades.
Yeah, and it's a little bit more disconnected here in this shot. Because I took this as a wide shot. And I think that bright star sort of in the middle there, Stephen, is Merope, right? This one right here. Is that correct?
My screen has been so dim, I can't see very well.
Or is that, is that Atlas right there?
My scene. Wait.
Is there that triangle of stars? I always forget which one's Merope.
It's kind of on the right side of, so when you see a wide shot, I'll try to pull one up with the nebulosity in it, so that
this definitely doesn't have that. What I should have done was pulled up the software, which I'll do now. Sky Safari Pro.
Oh yeah, okay, there you go.
We do have also. I want to mention we do have the one and only the Astro Joe. He's on his way. He had to go work out. So, but we always like to get Joe in here post gym. So he's on his way,
so
and he'll be
tired
out as well.
Yeah. Otherwise, he'll just be too energetic. We gotta run him around for a while before he comes on here.
Exactly, because if we get him in here before he works out, he's way too hyper. He says whatever he thinks, and that's not good. Of course, we're joking.
No, all right. Joe, here's a wide shot. I took.
There you go.
So we're looking at the star right here. We're looking at that particular little section of the Pleiades, which is the wider cluster. So you can see that it's particularly bright and dusty there, and there's a lot of dust around it as well.
Yeah, a lot in that general area. And again, like you said, these stars are moving as a family, and sort of just happenstance, they went in front of a gas cloud for us, right? And then so they're shining their light away from us, bouncing off that cloud, and then that light is coming back towards us, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. And the Pleiades, by the way, they are visible naked eye. Even in the city, you can find them. They're not super bright, but they look. A lot of people mistake it for like a tiny version of the Little Dipper.
That's right.
Like a mini dipper. But no, it is just its own cluster. It's one of the most obvious open star clusters in the sky. And it's 444 light years away, very roughly. Thank you, Salsa. Yeah, so she bought a print of the sprite, as she calls it. That's yeah. I don't even know what to call it. I call it the jellyfish sprite, I guess.
Ooh, there's some there's nomenclature issues here.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah. Thank you for buying that picture. Yes, I'm
trying to get through all the comments, and there's so many. Glad y'all are all here with us, and hanging out with us. Again, thank y'all for sharing the stream too. I see that happening as well, and we appreciate that because we do these for fun. And when y'all join us, it just makes it all the more worthwhile, which is amazing. So, but again, if you do have suggestions, something you'd like to see in the nighttime sky, I know somebody already said M42, which is pretty much a given, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna get there.
Yeah, well, which it'll be a little bit later, I guess, right? Because it's got to, kind of come into view.
It'll help if it's a little higher. I'll do M33. Yeah, the Triangulum Galaxy.
The Triangulum. There he is, Mr. Adam Corbill, throwing in the good stuff. That's another good one. But look, Australia in the house. Good to see you guys. But yeah, this is one of the better images I've ever seen of the Merope Nebula. I mean, besides like a Hubble image, of course, right? But it's just every time you come on, Stephen, it's just outstanding the level of quality that you can produce out there.
Thank you.
I mean, you are cheating. You do have more equipment than any human should ever have access to. But
It's never enough, though.
it's never enough. Yeah, there's always that one thing. Like I just spent 50 grand on a setup, but now I need this one $50 piece, to complete it, right?
Yep, just a little more, then I'll be happy. That's how it works.
That's how it works. We're never satisfied.
Acquisition syndrome.
We can't see the 104 anymore. It rhymes like that. Sorry, Matthew. 104 is in Corvus, or actually between Corvus and Virgo, and they're in an unfortunate place, which is near the sun. But if you wait till next spring, summer, we should be getting those back again.
Yep. Not ready for that yet, but eventually it'll come around again. It's a great galaxy, though. Yeah. See what other Well, there's a lot of stuff we can see tonight. So we'll get to a lot of different things here. But there's a couple galaxies which I hope will satisfy you. If you like M104, hopefully I can find some nice alternatives that are in the sky tonight.
Oh yeah, and M104 is a nice galaxy, but it's kind of, to me, it's it's an edge on, right? So there's not a whole lot of detail there. Although in a big scope, you can get some pretty good detail. However, if you look at something like M33, which is what Stephen is tuning in right here, you can immediately see why everyone loves the Triangulum Galaxy, because look at that. I mean, it looks like a wide field shot of our own Milky Way galaxy, right? Like a little section of it or something, but that's actually a whole other galaxy right there.
Yeah, and that's just our first shot, and I've kind of uncentered it. Oh wow, okay, got a nice.
That's a big comment. Yeah, thank you, Heidi. I didn't expect it to put the whole thing up there, but I guess it does. Wow, it's fantastic.
Oh, I was gonna peek over.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're looking at M33, and again, if you have ideas of what you want to see, just let us know. And I can't promise we'll be able to look at it, but we'll give it a try if it's up in the sky. Hey, that rhymes.
Yeah, it did. Right we're a rhyming bunch of fools tonight.
This is M33, the Triangulum Galaxy, a member of the local group of galaxies, the other members being the Milky Way, which we're in, and Andromeda, and some dwarf galaxies scattered around between them. It's 3.1 million light years, something like that. It's not that far for a galaxy. That's basically next door. And we are looking kind of off-centered. I kind of intentionally off-centered it because it's so big I can't squeeze the whole thing in the field of view. But the most interesting part, in my opinion, isn't the center over here. But if you follow this spiral arm down, you'll arrive here at NGC 604. And this is sometimes called the galactic knot. And it's a big star-forming region. I said someone wants to look at the Tarantula Nebula. We can't see the Tarantula Nebula. You can in Chile, Eduardo. We can't hear Texas in the United States. We're too far north. It's never above the horizon. But this is a lot like the Tarantula Nebula, but in a different galaxy. NGC 604 is an enormous star-forming region, a big stellar nursery. It's over 1,000 times brighter than the Orion Nebula, which we're going to look at next. So if it were where the Orion Nebula is in our galaxy, it would be unmistakable in the sky. It would be enormous. It'd be extremely bright. You would be able to see it even without any kind of optical aid at all. So it's pretty cool. And there's other little star-forming regions too, little red spots scattered around.
Yeah, this is a great galaxy for looking at what we call the H2 regions, right? Inside another galaxy, which is fantastic. And visually in a telescope, if you just let's say set up a 12-inch Dobsonian telescope, you can see all this stuff. You're not going to see it with this kind of clarity because, Stephen's using a much bigger telescope than even a 12-inch. He's using a 16, and he's taking long time exposures and sort of live integrating them as we're sort of hanging out here. which is a really high level stuff that he's doing. Guys, don't take this stuff for granted. I mean, Stephen, it's not to to laugh it off. I mean, Stephen has a lot of experience. That's why he has the position he does at the McDonald Observatory, and that's why he does what he does. So this stuff isn't exactly easy. However, if you wanted to view this galaxy again, you need a star chart, a finder scope of some kind, and a telescope, and that's it. You can put your telescope on this thing and see it from a good dark sky location for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a relatively faint one, despite being close. It's really spread out because it's so big. This light is kind of spread over a big area, which makes it hard to see sometimes in a big telescope. So I actually think it's better to see in sort of a slightly smaller telescope with a wider field of view, to kind of get more contrast with the background sky. Yeah, Horsehead. Yeah, we can do that.
Later, yeah.
Well, soon. Yeah, give it. I want the longer we wait with Orion, if we wait a little longer, it'll get higher up in the sky, and that'll make the views so much better. The higher things up are, the better they are, generally speaking. So I want to get the stuff that's high up now, and kind of save the best for last, because Orion it's Orion, and it is truly incredible and not to be missed. I also want to add, I also did a program last week on the 7th, where I looked and did a tour of all the deep sky, all the highlights of Orion, just focusing entirely on that constellation, and going into detail on it. So if you're interested in that, that's on the McDonald Observatory YouTube page, and you can rewatch the live stream I did from last week, the live deep sky tours I do there.
Which you've got to check that out. That's on the McDonald Observatory YouTube page, which now has almost 7,000 subscribers. Stephen, I think is what I saw last time I looked. And I remember
a lot from the conjunction, which we had.
Yeah. Before you started your little live stream stuff, I think y'all had like 1,100 subscribers. So, and we obviously can't attribute all of that growth to you, but I'd say a lot of that is due to your deep sky broadcast. I mean, there's huge buzz in the Houston astronomical community over here. Emails fly out every time y'all put up a new one whenever you're going to be live. You're famous, man. I just feel honored to be in the same room, even though we're on other sides of the state from each other. But I feel honored to be here with you, man, for sure.
I'm honored to be with you. You're a great host, and I really enjoy your company. So yeah, thank you for doing these too. These are fun. I like doing this. I saw a request from Ben Fields, if you want to put that one up.
Oh yeah, this one right here. There you go.
Yeah. All right, that's where we're going. NGC 185.
Oh, what a good. Ben has been here before, and Ben always has really good suggestions. So very cool. While you're doing that, Stephen, there was a question from Lorenzo. He says, I received a telescope and all I see is blobs. Suggestions, please. That sounds to me, honestly, like a focus problem. So what you'll want to do is just grab that telescope and point it in the sky, anywhere you can point it. Maybe try to get a bright star in there, and then play with the focuser like you would on a microscope, right? The little twisty knob near the eyepiece area. And you're going to twist that until you get a pinpoint object, because stars are pinpoint like you see in this image here. So Lorenzo, maybe try that, just rack the focus in and out all the way and see if you can find some kind of focus in there.
Yeah, that is true. And if you're not able to reach a focus, no matter how much you rack the pinning back and forth, you should try putting an extension tube in there to kind of lengthen the distance out more. That's sometimes, when I first bought a telescope, it needed an extension tube to reach focus, and it came with one, but it's easy to miss and not realize that you actually have to use that little tube that comes with it. So yeah, stick that in between the eyepiece and the telescope, bring the eyepiece kind of further out from the tube, and you should be able to reach focus if you otherwise can't.
That's right. And Lorenzo, no, the Seven Sisters are not anywhere near the North Star. I know a lot of people confuse that with the Little Dipper, and then I've heard people say Orion's Belt and all that is the Big Dipper, which I thought was funny. But no, all those things are different things. So no, there's no correlation between the North Star and the Seven Sisters, though. besides maybe star type. I don't know. Is a Polaris an O class star, Stephen? I can't remember.
It's a yellow giant. I don't know if
It's
it's.
a yellow. Okay.
I don't believe it's an O. It's big
I
though.
don't I don't look at Polaris unless it's through my what is it, the polar scope or the polar axis
Yeah,
scope.
it is actually an interesting star to look at.
It
It's
is.
a
It's a
double
double
star,
star. Yeah.
and it's kind of yellowy color. You don't really realize that naked eye. It's kind of yellowy. You're welcome, Ben.
Yeah,
Again,
absolutely.
this is NGC 185. It's a dwarf galaxy in the local group. And what else do I know about it? It looks like it's got a little dust lane in it,
It
and it's
does.
kind of a little bit elliptical. Let me change the color balance here. Let me kind of get this thing to look right.
And Sharon, no, you can't really tell which stars are no longer there. They're probably all still there. But if a star were to explode in one of these galaxies, it would take 3 million years, or with this one even longer, probably to get to us. So unless it blew up 3 million years ago, or however long far away these galaxies are tonight, we wouldn't know about it. It'll still keep shining until the light gets here, which is a crazy weird thing about physics. That does look interesting, Stephen, with that not a gas in there, yeah?
Yeah, it's got a little blob of gas inside the galaxy. I don't know enough about this galaxy off the top of my head, but it looks like a dwarf spheroidal galaxy.
And which one is it again? NGC
185.
185. Okay. I thought it was 85. Yeah. So this
Yeah,
is in
and it is a
Cassiopeia.
dwarf spheroid, 2 million light years away. It's a satellite of M31. Yeah, okay. And it
Is it?
contains young stellar clusters. Yeah, okay. So um, I have read about this one. So it is a little bit unusual because it is a little more active than most little dwarf galaxies. Now we say like there's three main galaxies in the local group: Andromeda, Triangulum, which we just looked at, and Milky Way, which we're inside of. So just look up. And then orbiting them, kind of in between them, orbiting either Andromeda or Triangulum or something in between, are a lot of these little dwarf galaxies. And this being one of them that's in orbit around Andromeda in 31. And this one, as well as a couple other satellites of Andromeda, have dust within them, and even active galactic nuclei, meaning they have black holes in their centers, which tell us that they may have been larger galaxies that drifted too close to the Andromeda, which is even bigger, and Andromeda kind of stole a lot of its material, kind of siphoned off its stars and gas, and what's left behind is kind of the core. That's one explanation for how the galaxy wound up this way. So it makes them kind of interesting. For the most part, these little dwarf galaxies are not active. It's not common for them to have lots of star formation or active black holes. They're usually kind of pathetic. But there's a lot of exceptions to that. The universe is a big place, and it's not hard to find exceptions to general rules at all.
That's true. Yeah, and this one's also known as Caldwell 18, which I'm assuming I did the Caldwell list, so I'm assuming I saw this one. It just it's one that I definitely don't look at, but definitely should. It is a good distance away from M31, considering that it is a sort of a satellite galaxy to this thing, which I guess will merge with M31 eventually, and then we'll eventually merge with M31 and this galaxy after a period of time, and then we'll all become one big Milkdromeda, which would be kind of cool.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know its trajectory, but it's possible it could merge together. Some of these little dwarves are on collision courses. Some of them are on less certain courses, or they may be flung out from the larger galaxy. Oftentimes, if you have especially two large things like the Milky Way and Andromeda, when they merge, if there's other smaller ones in, either they get sucked into, or they may get kicked out and flung off and through space. So either option. That's true of stars. It's true of galaxies as well, as a whole.
Yeah, and it looks like I'm seeing 560,000 light years from Andromeda Galaxy.
Yeah, it's a healthy distance. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long walk. So, but it's a beautiful galaxy again with that little clump of star forming something in there. You know, there's just a little knot of gas in there, which, you know, like we saw the last galaxy Stephen showed us, we saw a knot of gas and dust that was illuminated. Right, there was a stellar nursery sort of happening in
Mhm,
there,
mhm.
and this one it maybe just hasn't got to that point yet, or maybe it never will, or you know, it's just
Yeah, it's a
maybe
lot
it's the
smaller.
foreground, or maybe yeah,
Yeah,
it's a lot
yeah.
smaller.
Yeah, I mean, it's likely that, yeah, what we're seeing, of course, with this, all these dots, if you're not familiar, all these stars are in the Milky Way, so they're in the foreground. They're very close, uh, relatively speaking. They're a few thousands of light years away, whereas this one is about 2 million light years away, the smudge, and that smudge, of course, is actually millions of other unresolved stars, so close together that we can't resolve them apart.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. What is a stellar nursery? Asks Rainey. A stellar nursery is where stars are born. So the most famous example is the Orion Nebula. It's another way of saying it's a star forming region. It's just kind of more poetic way of saying it. So in other words, a stellar nursery is where there's a lot of gas and dust, usually very cool gas and dust, that's coming together, usually just from gravity. Other mechanisms sometimes involved too. And it's clumping together, and then once it reaches sort of a critical threshold, gravity takes over, compresses that gas and dust, and stars are born. And they're usually born together in big groups. And that's essentially what a stellar nursery is, where bunches of stars are forming. And we're going to see the best example of that in a little bit too when we look at Orion.
Oh yeah. Orion is obviously, you know, we people like Stephen. Oh, and there goes a little satellite there. I see right on the
Oh,
right
yep,
hand
yep,
side.
yep.
Yeah.
Blame Travis.
Well, yeah, I was about to say we got to bring this up now because that's you know that's how it goes. But you know the Orion Nebula to people like Stephen and I, we're kind of like we're done with it. You know, we're like you know
Oh, yeah, we've seen it. We've seen it.
we've seen that one more than a few times over here. But every time I do look at it, especially, you know, with my Dob or, you know, just another telescope or whatever, it's just fantastic object.
Absolutely. It never really gets old. I mean, like, I say I'm done with it. I still glance at it every time I can before moving on to the things I'm really there for, like I
Totally.
still can't resist the temptation to look at it. Since we were talking about Andromeda, I figured we might as well just move the telescope a little bit over 500,000 light years to the left, and look at Andromeda. So that's where we are
Yeah,
right
because
now.
it's right there. And we'll just see the core, which there it is.
Oh, there it is.
Now, there's a lot of dust in this galaxy, which is a beautiful thing. Now, you're not necessarily going to see that visually. You will a little bit with bigger
A little
scopes.
bit.
Andromeda is kind of like, you know, people are like, oh, I want to see Andromeda in a telescope. And actually, it's almost better in binoculars because
Yeah, it
it's
is. Yeah.
so massive.
Yeah, absolutely. It is really better with the small telescope visually. With a larger telescope, it is kind of disappointing because you're so zoomed in, you lose perspective. You lose the contrast with the background sky.
Mm-hmm.
But here, of course, with the camera, we can kind of get around that. We're looking at the core, of course, where there's the most stars at the center, and then a line of dust and gas here. It's a spiral galaxy that we're viewing at a slight tilt. It's more edge on than face on, so we kind of look at a kind of weird angle, and that's kind of. But this is the closer side, and so we're kind of seeing the line of gas and dust obscuring the starlight behind it.
And Ron Sparkman brings up a good point
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
Steven does look a little creepy with that night vision. You know, he's
I,
got those
this is how I
vampire
always
eyes.
look. It's not the
Yes.
camera.
This is actually natural Steven right here. This is why
Yeah.
he chose this career, you know, so that he could stay in the dark and
Yeah, I
not
just fit
freak
in like
people
this.
out.
I just glow in the dark like this, in black and
Yeah.
white. Yeah.
Constantly putting off infrared illumination, you know.
Mhm. I mean, everyone
Um,
is, but yeah.
yeah, wait, that's very true. Um, but yeah, now this galaxy is, you know, everybody knows the Andromeda galaxy. And if you don't, then you probably do, and you don't realize that you do. You've seen the Hubble images, no doubt. You've seen dozens of amateur astrophotographers images of this. I have images of this. I mean, everybody, you can look up like naked eye. If you have a dark enough sky, you can see this thing easily.
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that right
And
now.
yeah,
Look
Stephen has the best skies pretty much in the world, I think, out there, some of the best
Almost.
anyways. And yeah, naked eye, it just appears as a little fuzzy patch. I kind of use Cassiopeia to kind of point to it, and you just kind of follow it over into Andromeda, and then you'll be like, what's that fuzzy football thing? Oh, that's another galaxy not in our own galaxy, which is pretty amazing. And it never fails to disappoint, to impress. It doesn't disappoint. Although, again, at high power, at high magnification telescopes, it only disappoints because you can only bring in a small. And Stephen, we're less than half of the galaxy in this particular field of view, correct? I mean, it's got to be.
Oh yeah, it's like 6 full moons in the sky, and we're only looking about like 2/3 of a full moon. So yeah, we're really not seeing all that much of it.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful galaxy that a lot of people, like I said earlier, they know about it. They know of it. They've heard about Andromeda, and they always ask to see it. I always get that, on my TikTok and Instagram, like, can we see Andromeda? And I'm like, well, I actually have videos of that up. You just have to go, back a little ways or whatever. But I typically tend to stay away from, this one and Messier 42, the Orion Nebula, like Stephen was talking about, because we've been there. It's like when you go on vacation to the same place 100 times, you want to try to branch out a little bit, and go other places. Yeah. There's a lot of other places to vacation in the sky for sure.
Speaking of which, we're going to move to NGC 891.
Oh, yes. Now, this is going to be a treat. So you saw how fast that telescope is, folks. I mean, again, I don't think we should trivialize the epicness of that setup. So look at Stephen. Steven's tall. Like Stephen, you're like 6'1".
I'm 6'3".
6'3". Okay, I was 2 inches off. You were wearing platform, I think, the last time I saw, or sandals or something. And that scope is just absolutely massive. And then look who joined us, Mr. Joe Califf.
There's Joe. Hey, everyone.
He made it. I know, man. You're good. You're just in time for a view of NGC 891 as Stephen is queuing it up for us there. But y'all definitely follow Joe at the Astro Joe. You can see his tag there floating across the screen at the speed of light down there at the bottom. So you can definitely follow him on all the socials. And yeah.
Appreciate that.
Good to see you, Joe. Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys too. It's been a while since we've done this. Stephen, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing just fine. It's a great night here, despite all my initial fears about the weather. It's turning out fine. So yeah,
excellent.
And I trust the gym treated you well, Joe.
It did. I had to do a little bit of yoga, so it feels good on the back, and yeah, good to be back.
Nice. Oh well, there's another satellite, so we've got to do what we've got to do there. So there we go.
Mandatory. Yeah.
Now, this is one of my favorite galaxies, Stephen, and I don't really talk about it too much because...
How many favorite galaxies do you have?
Like 40, at least. There's at least 40. But no, this is definitely one of my favorites because in a telescope, when you look at this thing, it looks exactly like that. We've said that about other things that look similar, they're kind of close, whatever. This thing really does look like this, and especially like a 20-inch stub or something big like that. Joe, our friend here, just got a 25-inch Dobsonian, so he's beaten me by 3 inches on his optics there, which I'm not happy about, Joe. So
look, I haven't used it yet, so whatever advantage you think I might have it's nullified in the fact that I haven't used it. So this Saturday, though, I'm taking it out.
Oh, nice. Now, I guess out to the dark place, huh?
Absolutely.
Nice. So, Stephen, this is an edge-on, whereas we were just looking at Andromeda, which is a mostly face-on. As we have those 2 different style of galaxies. We have edge-on and we have face-on, and then there's, of course, the ones in between. And this galaxy is 32 million light years away versus, 2.5 million light years away?
Yeah.
So it's probably about the same size, but definitely a lot further away.
Yeah, it's probably in the ballpark of the same size. But yeah, it is about 30, 32 million, depending on who you ask. And it's very thin. And we're viewing it almost perfectly edge on. And we are seeing the line of dust and gas dividing it in between. Yeah, yes, it is a software bisque mount. It's a Paramount ME.
Which makes me hungry for some reason. I don't know. Bring up bisque, and I'm like, yeah, give me some lobster bisque right now.
Oyster crackers to go with it, right?
Yeah. So let's put some software in a blender and make some bisque.
Yeah, I always thought it was kind of a weird name for a company that makes hardware, especially.
Yeah.
The hardware bisque, right?
Hardware bisque. Yeah.
But it is a catchy title, and the fact that we just gave them a free advertisement is, hey, it's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
that it is Van Houten 64 NGC 891, which I don't think this one even has like one of those weird nicknames, does it, Stephen? I don't think it.
I've heard names. I've heard like the Silver Sliver before.
Silver Sliver. Wow, that's a new one.
I've heard that one as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, now I feel like the cheese that's standing alone here. I've always known it as NGC 891 or Caldwell 23.
Yeah, it's a great galaxy though, and a big scope. It does look a lot like that. I remember seeing this, I think, in your scope, Will, at some point. Maybe mentioning it. Yeah, well, maybe that was 4565, which is sort of similar.
Very similar, exactly. Yeah, which is the needle. This galaxy, just an interesting little tidbit that I got here on my end of the software. William Herschel, who we all know and love, guy that was a brilliant astronomer back in the mid 1700s, late 1700s. He discovered this object. He discovered this on October 6th of 1784. So, wow. Just to give you, I mean, that's a long, long time ago. In a galaxy far, far away, which is hilarious.
Yeah. Now, are we sure he discovered it, or did his sister?
Well, according to Sky Safari Pro, it was definitely him. It says, however, in the appendix to his first catalog, he confused it with his HV.18, which is M110, when discussing the discoveries of his sister, Carolyn Herschel. This remark was picked up by Admiral Smythe and later authors.
Smith with a Y?
Smith with a Y, yeah, sorry. Smith with a Y, sorry.
That's how it's spelled. I don't know how to pronounce it. Oh. Did we lose him?
Did we lose Will?
I think we lost him. Yeah. Well, that's all right. He'll be back in a second.
Absolutely.
I'm going to head on to NGC 1300, which is in the southern part of the sky. And then we'll work our way over towards the other side, which is to the rising in the east, where Orion is. So those other interesting constellations and objects.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be a lot of nice gems and treasures to see there. Although NGC 1300 is a nice one, so we're in store for a nice treat here coming up.
Yeah, it is a great galaxy. Will gone. I don't think I can actually change the. I don't think I can change what's on the image there. So hopefully he can join us.
Yeah, I think you're stuck right now.
Yeah, so I mean I can change my view on the camera, but
we can describe it in great detail.
Yeah, but Ben's little quote I think is going to be stuck there, even though it's no longer going to be true.
Right. Oh goodness.
Oh well. Technical difficulties will make do. The one thing that's good about this platform is even if something like this happened where the host just loses connection or whatever, we're still live. We're still going. Right. So,
yeah, we do see now. We do see the image coming up on the screen.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
There he is. There he is. It's all right. We improvise.
My Wi-Fi has a disease or something. I don't even know.
This plagued us the other night too, right? With less serious applications, but
yeah, we were trying to play an online game together, me and Joe, and it's just like boot me off every 6 seconds, so that's not fun. This right here, though, is a galaxy that's a friend of ours, Bram Wiseman, the amateur astronomer. That's one of his favorite galaxies.
Yeah.
Which this one is a very iconic galaxy, and it seems to be saying S. It seems like.
Yeah. Look at nice S shape. Yeah,
S.
NGC 1300. Wouldn't a satellite seem bigger? No, not necessarily. You know, when we see satellites in the telescope, we don't really resolve them usually, unless it's like the ISS or something really big. They'll just be little dots. And a lot of satellites are really small. Some smaller than a laptop now. And so, you know, they'll just be a little dot zipping by. So what? Yeah. Yeah, most of it. Yeah, we can look at 37. Yeah, we can do that later.
Carolina Sky Astronomy. How you doing, Carolina? Good to see you. Thank you, Rayleigh. Again, it's just everything blacked out on me. It was like you pass out digitally. That's what it feels like when you get big at everything. It's like everyone's frozen, and you're like, "Why is everyone else wrong?" And then it's like, "Oh, I'm on the floor. Okay, gotcha."
Yeah,
I didn't know that was a Celsa. I didn't know that there was an Edgar Frost song. I was unaware that someone had a song titled that. That's very cool. Link us up, Celsa. Throw us a link in there.
Yeah,
it definitely looks like an S. Superman.
The Superman galaxy. Yeah, there you go. I like that.
Yeah.
I can deal with that. Or almost like a 5. You know, if you can imagine it, a little bit like a 5.
Yeah. What I like about this is there's certainly a distinct bar structure in the middle, and then just the two distinct arms, right? So it's really easy to make out the structure. And this is about the size of the Milky Way galaxy too, right? So, you know, if somebody on a planet in this galaxy has a telescope and is looking out in our direction, we would appear to be about the same apparent size using the same equipment, right?
Right.
But obviously the structure of this galaxy is a little different than the Milky Way galaxy. We have a few more arms.
It's a little different. Yeah.
This is a live image.
So loosely wound. It doesn't have such a strong bar, but
yeah,
our galaxy's all kinds of weird. But and what's the worst thing about our galaxy, I think, is that we can't see ourselves from outside of ourselves. And so that's why I've been petitioning the U.S. government and other world governments to build a massive mirror that we can shoot out there, so then we can, like, you know, kind of bounce the light off and look at ourselves. Because as a galaxy, how are you supposed to operate if you can't see what you look like?
Wow.
Maybe we shouldn't be so self-image, you know.
so superficial.
Yeah.
We do have a good look at ourselves from inside ourselves, though, you know. So if you want a good view of the Milky Way, you have one right now. You don't even realize it. You're sitting in a house inside the Milky Way, which is amazing. And Celsa, I don't think so. That would scare me. If I got elected president, I would be scared. I would be scared. You don't want this guy with the nuclear codes. Trust me. Hey, there's my buddy Afshin. He says, "Is the center of a galaxy, or is that a star in the way?" And with this one, that's
the galaxy. Yeah. So some galaxies have what we call active galactic nuclei, or AGN, and that's kind of a catch-all term for a bunch of different mechanisms and sorts of ways this happens. But yeah, there's a lot of light coming from the center of the galaxy. That could be from a lot of stars near the center, sometimes it's from activity from a black hole heating gas around it as well. Or sometimes there's a lot of very young massive stars forming in the center. So yeah, some galaxies do have very bright centers, and you'll see that they almost look like stars.
Stellar, yeah, we call them stellar core. In fact, when I'm looking at galaxies in my telescope visually, and I'm logging them down, like I'm writing down the information, I will say loose bound arms, you know, like nice barred spiral here. With this one, I would say obviously stellar core. Whereas like M33, we looked at that earlier, not a stellar core. It's a brighter area maybe where the center of the galaxy is, but it is not an AGN, an active galactic nuclei, there's not enough material, I guess, concentrated in that center area to really kind of brighten it up. And like Stephen said, that AGN, that active galactic nuclei term, is kind of a catch-all for a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's like quasars, blazars. There's just all kinds of different, the Seyfert galaxies, Markarian galaxies. So there's all these different classifications of galaxies that are doing weird, different stuff. It's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and the interesting thing here, right, is this galaxy, I believe, is about 60 million light years away, so much further away than the Andromeda galaxy. And a lot of people, when they look at the Andromeda galaxy through a telescope, they're seeing the core primarily,
right?
And they think that's the entire galaxy. And now that's just a testament to how bright that core area is on the Andromeda galaxy. So, with a different type of telescope, shorter focal length, depending on the eyepiece, you're able to get more of it. But a lot of people, especially with Schmidt-Cassagrands, they're getting that core and they're thinking that's the entire galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Celso would like to see the tuning fork.
I'll pull that up here in a minute.
Stephen Hummel, because Hummel knows a lot about the Hubble tuning fork, which is not a musical term at all. I know it sounds like it, but it's not. It's actually a very awesome evolution of galaxies. It's like that shirt, that T-shirt where it shows like apes, going into man. Well, this is galaxies going into what they do, which is pretty interesting.
Okay.
There we go.
Well, that's not the one I had in mind, but
it's close. Yeah,
close enough. I don't know.
That's not the Hubble-approved Hubble tuning fork.
No, it is not.
It's the Hubble tuning fork if you got it on Wish.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the knockoff one. But anyway, we're clearly on the lower end, the SBC category. So this is a little different than what he was talking about. He was talking about and I was talking about earlier, active galactic nuclei, which are the ways in which the center becomes bright. What's really going on in the middle. But this is sort of the various shapes, classifying the different shapes of that they can have. There's a lot of variety, and this chart doesn't really do it justice. Frankly, even if there were 100 different, points on this chart, it still wouldn't be complete because there's a lot of variation. But yeah, we're definitely in the SB kind of C category, down on the lower right on the chart.
Yeah, and I wanted to throw this comment up here, if I can sift through the myriad of comments we're getting. Again, thank you guys for hanging out with us and dropping all these awesome comments. But this one came in, Stephen. I don't know if this is doable. It's in Orion.
Yeah, I entered those coordinates in there, so I'm going to go there right now.
So it's queued up, y'all. Good looking out, Van. Thank you for doing that. And then one I wanted to go. It was way up here, and I just missed it. While we're doing that, man, so many comments. I can't even find where it was, so I apologize. Oh, there it is, Abbeville, Louisiana. And Angela, what's cool is Falk is actually one half of my family lineage, so we may be related in some weird way or distant way. Falk and Hofpower were the two families that sort of coalesced to create the rest of us that came after them. So cool. We may even be family. Who knows? Good to have you.
There it is. Look at that.
There it is. Look at that.
There
wow. Look at the comet, y'all.
Yeah.
A winter comet.
Cool. That's a nice one. I wonder if we'll see it move. I'm not stacking on the comet. I'm stacking on aligning the stars. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So in a few minutes, we should. Will we see elongation, Stephen, or will it just appear that the comet just kind of jumps in a second?
We'll see elongation of it.
Okay.
The comet will just kind of gently elongate in whatever direction it's moving, which may not be the direction you expect because the tail's trailing off to the right. Does not necessarily mean that it's going to be moving to the left. That is the direction probably at this point. The tail is roughly pointed away from the sun, or it could be. I guess it's probably a dust tail, so that could be along its path of movement, but it's not necessarily perfect. But yeah, that's a little comet. What was the name of this again? 898P.
It's comet 398P Bottini, Boattini, Bottini. So I assume that Botini is the lucky guy who got to discover this one.
Yeah.
Botini, which sounds maybe Italian. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Now this is atypical. Hey y'all, there's a comet in the sky. You gotta go see this comet. Let's go.
Everybody
do it.
go inside.
Yeah. And then we get on the comet and it's like, there it is.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
If you have a hot pixel big enough, it's gonna cover this guy. It's ridiculous. And that's the kind of the game when you're dealing with comets. I know we all three of us in here, super excited about Neowise, and then it came and we were all like, nah, I mean, it was nice. Don't get us wrong, but that's
not common. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not common. This is common right here.
Yeah, a lot of people expect to see, if they're old enough, something like Hale-Bopp, right? Whenever they hear there's a naked eye comet, usually it's low to the sky. You got to see it right before sunrise or right after sunset, and it's low to the horizon. And for those of us who geek out on that kind of stuff, it's really impressive. But a lot of people expect to see something like Hale-Bopp that just lingered in the night sky for months on end and just had a tremendous tail. So I think we're overdue for one like that, though.
Yeah. And in fact, I'm kind of amazed we can even see that this one has a tail.
Yes, I am too.
Yeah. This one, I'm getting, let's see, on my software, plus 14.8, magnitude 14.8. Now, that could be wrong. I think that's based on predictions. I think they get that from the Minor Planet Center.
I would say this is probably like 10 or 11 or
10
something.
or a little brighter. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like these are all based on predictions, these magnitudes and stuff. But a very prolific comet hunter, Mr. David Levy himself, had an awesome saying about comets. He said, comets are like cats. They have tails and they do what they want. So if you remember ISON, the biggest comet that was ever supposed to be the craziest, and then it went around the sun and died. Again, comets have tails and they do what they want. And that's figuratively, of course. We don't think that comets actually have consciousnesses, but I see a little elongation there. It's becoming a sausage comet.
Yep, it is moving. It is trailed relative to the stars, which tells you it is in motion.
Yeah, and it's going down. I can't.
Yeah, I think it's going downwards.
Down and to the left.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then again, if Stephen were to just take several hundred images of this over the period of a couple of hours and let the star field the same, this comet would just appear to drift on by, because again, it's closer to us than those background stars, and it's moving at a greater rate of speed than the stars behind it relative to our position. So we see that movement. We don't see the stars moving, even though they are moving. They move too slow typically for us to kind of see, unless you're talking about Barnard's star, but we're not talking about Barnard's star. We're talking about this Botini comet, and it is moving, and you can see now it's even getting more sausage-like. And it looks like we're getting a little bit more of a tail there, or maybe I'm just kind of
like if I zoom all the way out here, which sometimes helps, you can kind of see that the tail does extend a fair bit.
Yeah,
out. It's out there.
No color though, and typically, Stephen, we've talked about this before on past live streams, but typically these comets are either a dusty gray or like a bluish green. And this one definitely is not close enough, I guess, to the sun to start that bluish green phase or whatever. And I think this comet is actually on its way out, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Somebody correct me on that, but I think that's what we're looking at here. And yes, Mir,
for going to it.
I remember it from, like, people were saying, you got to check it out. It's a comet. It's going to be going through Orion. It's like, yay. And then of course clouds and everything else. But then again, we get on target.
There was one back in November. It was pretty good. Actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It lined up with the belt too. It was kind of cool.
Oh, maybe that's the one I'm thinking about then. Yeah. Because that, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's this one. It may be, but no, that was different. That was an Atlas comet. This isn't it.
That's right.
Yeah. And yes, I am stacking, by the way. I saw that question. Yes.
Stacky. That's the we love stacking here at the Deep Sky Deutery, or the McDonald Observatory.
Observatory. There you go.
Observatory. If you say it sophisticated like that, it makes you sound way smarter. And
you have a picture in your hand, right? And
yeah, I need some brandy. The observatory.
The observatory.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you can definitely see the elongation now.
Yep.
There's no doubt.
Oh,
This is
yeah.
about 5 minutes on it. So in 5 minutes, it has moved down that way.
Now, I want to be clear that red dot is not a alien spaceship worthy of you drinking some Kool-Aid. Okay, that is a hot pixel. All right, and so are the little blue dots behind it. That's not a star. Those aren't stars. That is just an artifact of the camera. So before you OVNI fans get any ideas, that's a word that I learned not long ago. Actually, Buddy Bram was like, OVNI means UFO, and I'm like, what? No way. And he was right.
I took 6 years of French, so absolutely.
Oh, is that where it comes from?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, I think they use it in Latin America too, I believe, but that's the French acronym for it as well.
Aha. And then Van, who this is Van's object here, so we might as well call this the Van comet. On this broadcast anyway, right? Van says it passed perihelion a couple of weeks ago. So what perihelion is? Its closest approach to the sun. So yeah, perihelion would be closest. Aphelion or aphelion, whatever. That other one, the appa word, is away, right? And I always do it like, perigee and apogee, The P means pretty close. The A, apogee, means away. So perihelion, close, pretty close, right? Aphelion, away from the sun. And helion, of course, we all know means the sun. Or you do now.
We are going to something called NGC 1952.
It was a great year.
Actually, another much more well-known designation, which I'm sure y'all figure out. I just figured I would make it a little bit of a mystery.
Ooh. Oh, I cheated and I used Sky Safari, so I know exactly what this is. Yep. But this object is not just a smudge in the sky. We're going to talk about this object while we're here because this object has been with humanity for a very, very long time. But I'm going to let Stephen take away the sort of the intro to this one here.
You got this. You're all pumped.
I got
to talk
this.
About it. Yeah,
I got this one. Oh
no, I don't have to talk about all.
Some nice color in there right now.
There is actually. That's actually.
That's really impressive.
And Van nailed it. This is Messier 1. This is where the Messier list begins and ends. Well, not really, but if you're starting,
it doesn't end there. There's a lot of other cool stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff, but it's not the end all be all. But this thing is a beautiful object, and now in a telescope, visually, it's like, okay, it's a gray, smudgy thing. I have no idea why they call this the Crab Nebula, which is its nickname, the Crab Nebula. I assume at one point in time it had pinchers and little antenna or something, little legs, but now it doesn't, which it's probably not true at all. It probably didn't have any of that. But this object is what we know as a supernova remnant. And wow, Stephen, that is just freaking spectacular with the reds in there. Look at that.
Look at that.
Yeah, a little bit of a hint of blue there too. I'm sure it'll come out more as we spend more time with it. But
now, and somewhere in there is a pulsar, which is the ghost of a star. It's that little dot of light right there. And we actually have video of, like, I think it's from Hubble over the decades of Hubble looking at this thing. You can see the pulsar and these waves of shockwave material coming out of the pulsar, which is right there. And you can see that whole thing sort of happening right there. But in the year 1050, okay, the year 1050, if you want to go that way with it, Chinese astronomers, Native American astronomers here in the U.S., astronomers all over the world, Arabic astronomers saw a new star, which, the word nova is sort of translated, but this was actually a supernova because it's a supernova remnant, right? But they saw this object as it was exploding naked eye. They saw just a bright star where there was none a few days before, right? And I think it was in July, maybe. It was like the July, early July region of 1050. And we know that because the Chinese astronomers at the time were already taking detailed records. They were drawing, they were writing stuff down. And this nova, this supernova, is actually documented on rocks in New Mexico, in a place called Chaco Canyon. It's in New Mexico. It's a
pretty special place.
Yeah, it's an amazing place. If you've never been to Chaco Canyon, you after COVID's over, haul it out there because it's amazing, and demand that they take you to the supernova pictograph is what it's called, the supernova pictograph. I'm not making this up. If you Google the supernova pictograph, you're going to find this. They even drew the moon for that night. And if you go back and you move the software back, the moon, when this thing was, just starting, is they did it perfectly. So just a little bit of trivia there for you. Now I'll turn it over to Stephen to tell us probably like the more sciencey stuff. But like, why is there red, Stephen? Is that hydrogen, or is that just an artifact of
Yeah. So there's a lot going on here. Physics of a supernova can get pretty complicated pretty quickly, but really what we have is there was an explosion of the star, and the shock wave is expanding outwards. And again, it's less than 1,000 years old, which in astronomy terms is not much. So it's still expanding out. It's still very hot. There's that neutron star in the middle, that pulsar, which is putting out lots of energy. And there are these filaments of gas and hydrogen, which are being ionized, being heated up from that star. And hydrogen glows that red color when it's heated up. There's other colors in there. There's a hint of blue, which is much fainter, harder to see, but it's kind of around here. And it also sort of traces out along with the red filaments from other elements like helium and oxygen. It's kind of just a big soup mess of different elements and molecules in there. And in these events, we also think that this is where heavy elements are generated in a supernova, elements heavier than iron on the periodic table. It's likely where they come from is from events like this or similar events. And as that cloud will expand off into space, eventually this material will probably wind up in another star or another planetary system. And, maybe it'll wind up in someone's watch or something.
Yeah. Billions of years from now, we'll all be dust.
We'll be gone. But now you bring up a great point, Stephen, right? This is a relatively new object, astronomically speaking, right? About a little less than 1,000 years ago. And it's amazing to see, as Will alluded to, just how dynamic it is, how it changes all the time. And, we tend to think of things in the night sky as being very static and non-changing and whatnot. But, you could look it up. I think they have a pretty good record of the images from Hubble where they show just how this thing changes from year to year. So if you get a chance, Google that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know if we have the
now. I
rights
think
to show some of those things, but yeah.
this thing is it's a little over 6,000 light years away. And I'm getting
there's a lot of uncertainty too about that, on the exact distance.
Yeah. Now because there's issues with that, but again, it's probably, I guess, about 6,000 light years away, which means that when that star exploded, and they saw it in 1050, that star had to blow up. Like, let's just say it was 6,000 light years away. It had to blow up 6,000 years ago for that light to get here, so that the Native Americans, Chinese astronomers, and astronomers all over the world in that year 1050 could see the explosion at all, which is fantastic. It's sort of an event that happened, long ago. And then it took all that time for it to get here. And in the grand scheme of things, 6,000 light years is in our backyard. That's just right around the corner. And it looks like I see a diameter of 10.8 light years. Does that sound about right to you, Stephen?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable for that distance and that size in the sky. It's not a big object in the sky, but, there's certainly a lot smaller things that we've seen. It's one of those objects that when I first found it in my little 8-inch Newtonian, when I was first looking for these things,
which I had to laugh there, and I know and then Joe's laughing too, because it just sounds absurd that Stephen Hummel would ever look through an 8-inch telescope at any point.
I laugh at that, and I laugh at something else. If he says what I think he's going to say, then I'll let you finish.
Oh, well, it was just a lot smaller than I thought it was.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people think, oh, M1. the first Messier object in the catalog. It's got to be something grand and brilliant and whatnot. And I thought the same thing. And it took me a while when I had my, my first telescope, which was just a 60 millimeter refractor, to even find anything. It was like, okay, well, is that it? There's so many other things that are much more impressive. In the nearby sky, right? I mean, Orion's not that far away, so
that's right. Yeah.
And
Bitul, I guess that's how I don't want to butcher your name, but I will. I butcher names not on purpose, and I'm sorry. We don't kill astrologers here. We just educate them. So, welcome. No violence here.
We are going to look at M37 next, which was requested earlier.
So nice open cluster. And Carlos has a question really for Stephen here. What's the setup for live stacking? Camera software is not automatically stacking. I think Stephen has it set up to do that automatically, which he kind of set the program up there. And what can I get to do the same thing? Well, Carlos, I guarantee you're probably going to need a mortgage loan to do this kind of work, because I know that I would have to sell both my kidneys to even get close to this setup. But
for this particular telescope. But if you want the software, at least, you can get that relatively cheaply. This is called SharpCap, and I'm kind of pulling up the behind the scenes here a little bit. What I'm doing
behind the curtain.
Yeah. Kind of balancing the colors. So the stacking occurs mostly by itself. You can see it's got one frame stacked right now at 30 seconds, and it will tell me it'll align on the stars for the next image to add another one, and then I'm manually adjusting the color balance, because that kind of changes a bit for each target to get it right, to get the colors as accurate as I can, with this setup, at least on a live format. So now you can see it's ignoring frames, and that's because I'm also guiding, and it's dithering the exposure. So
big words.
I have so here's my guider. This is a free piece of software called PhD2, and you can see it's centered a star in there. So every 30 seconds after it takes a picture, it moves the star just a little bit by a few pixels, and then takes another picture. And the reason for that is so that when I'm stacking them, I'm not stacking noise on top of noise, but I'm averaging out the noise and moving the noise around, so it kind of gets smeared out and averaged away. That's
the best description of dithering I've ever heard, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it makes it sound. People think it's really complicated. It's really not. You're just moving it a tiny bit and
smudging it, right? It's like tracing a pencil and then using your finger to smooth things out, right?
Basically, get that noise out.
Yeah.
Ben asks what manufacturer telescope is from. It's by RCOS, Arcos, Richardson Optical Systems. They're no longer around, and they mostly sold kind of research grade telescopes to universities and government agencies and things like that, but to some very affluent amateur astronomers as well. So you can find them on the used market, but they're relatively rare. Again, Arcos. It's a 16-inch f9 carbon tube with Astrocytal optics.
Ooh, Astrocytal, my favorite. Now, RCOS stands for really costly optical system, right?
That's right, exactly. That's what it stands for.
Yeah. Astrocytal is basically it's like quartz. It's like zero Dur. It's a glass that has basically zero coefficient of expansion. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Zero Dur is a competitor to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Astrocytal is the Russian variant. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, or Ukrainian, I think.
Something like that. Yeah. Which is very cool. And I think Spencer got it here. Richie Krashian Optical Systems. There's a lot of debate on how to actually say that C word. I've heard Krashian, Krashin. I've heard croissant. There's all kinds of croissant. That's my favorite way to say it, is Richie Croissant. So croissant. But you can see that these RC telescopes, these Richie Krashins, however you want to pronounce it, they really produce a very good image, a flat image. So there's not issues at the edge. Stephen has to tweak a few things here and there, but there's the light is pure. It's not being put through glass at any point. It's bouncing off glass, which is a big difference.
the best image you can get with only 2 reflective surfaces. That's what an RC really is designed to do.
Absolutely, yeah. And Ben
no
says very
corrective
cool.
plate or anything else like that too, right? So
That's right.
Like you said, no glass to pass through.
Yeah,
exactly. And Spencer, that's really cool. That you're working for a Tuscan manufacturer. Spencer, I do not have a flattener. I don't need one.
Yeah, you don't need one in an RC.
Right.
In an RC, now that's true. That's not true on some.
Yeah, it's up to a certain size. The size of the sensor is small enough still, even though it's APS-C, that I don't need one. However, I also have a reducer in there, so I do actually have one optical element. But even with the reducer, I still don't need a flattener. It's just a reducer. I could go up to about a little larger than a full frame sensor and not run into any problems.
Now this object here, Stephen, is about 4,500 light years away. And we were talking about earlier how there's stellar nurseries all over the galaxy and stars are being born. Now this, at one point, if I'm not mistaken, these open clusters were stellar nurseries, and now they're sort of a sparse collection of the stars that maybe formed in there. Some may have gotten pulled in, and some are getting pushed out. But I think most stars, we're sort of learning now, form in these open clusters, these sort of groups, and then they sort of kick each other out, and they evaporate, right? I mean, that eventually M37 and most open clusters will evaporate by kind of just through gravitational interaction. One little star gets kicked out, and then another one, and sort of like that.
And they're no longer gravitationally bound. Yeah,
they're temporary.
Yeah. Whereas the globular clusters, those really tight groupings of stars where there's hundreds of thousands of stars in an area half this size, they don't really evaporate. And they have a whole different set of rules in the globular cluster region.
And they tend to be very old, right?
Yeah. Now we can look at one of those here in a minute, too, if you want. I'm 79.
Yeah.
Leave us. But I'm going to the tried and true, perhaps a little worn out favorite right now.
Oh, I know where we're going, huh?
You're saying it's a glob?
No, not yet.
Okay, gotcha.
I have a feeling this is NGC
really good,
1976. Is this 1970? Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yes, it is. All right, that's
NGC 1976. So look at that, though. And we've had this debate on the show before, Stephen, and I know you and I disagree on this, but these color cameras are pretty rocking. I know you're more of a mono guy.
I'm a little more mono, yeah.
You're a mono guy because you love being rude to yourself with all the post processing you have to do. No. Whereas I'm a super lazy guy, and I like instant gratification, which is what we're getting right here with this kind of image.
Absolutely. I'm in Camp Lazy myself too, so
Camp Lazy. That's we need shirts. We need hashtag Camp Astronomy Lazy. Yeah. Hashtag color is greater than mono.
Yeah, but man, with mono, like think of the things you saw with the mono cam. A Hoag's object.
That's true.
I mean, some of the crazy stuff we've seen, like that's super faint. All those galaxies in spring, man. There's some stuff, and you get better resolution.
You do, yeah.
The fact that it's just so much more sensitive to me makes it more appealing. But it depends on what you're looking at. Obviously, this target, it's better with color. I won't argue against that one bit because it's such a colorful object. But a lot of fainter stuff, a lot of less colorful things. Which is really most of the stuff in the sky, honestly.
Certainly every galaxy, right?
Yeah.
Although there are some yellows and browns in certain galaxies, like NGC 891 kind of has that yellowy kind of hue to it, and even Andromeda, when Stephen showed us that earlier, kind of had some browns. Maybe it's just the dust and all that, but
kind of yellowy hue to it.
That looks sort of like the trapezium looks sort of like the weird Mickey Mouse head.
Yeah, it's oversaturated a bit. Even 30 seconds is too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the growth on one ear, right?
That's right. Yeah, they need to get that looked at. It could be potentially dangerous. So that's the trapezium. Now these 4 stars are mostly that big one, are really responsible for the glow of that whole nebula complex, really. They're also responsible for carving out, because stars put off wind, stellar winds. And these stars are carving out the gas and dust in the Orion Nebula, which that alone is triggering other stars and proplyds, or protoplanetary disks, proplyds, which are basically how we formed. We were in a proplyd. I know it sounds like a weird word, but again, these astronomy terms, you just got to hear them a couple of times and they kind of sink in. But there's tons of, guys, wait till we launch James Webb and they pointed at the Orion Nebula, which is this year, by the way, 2021. We are in the year that this thing gets launched. Hopefully, like Joe said, but man, it's going to blow away any perception we had of the Orion Nebula once we start seeing these proplyds in detail.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. I mean, we looked at an open cluster just a little while ago. Most open clusters are born out of a large gas system like this, right? At some point in the future, this will probably bear an open cluster that we'll be able to see from the Earth. But that's an absolutely amazing thing, right? And then you're kind of looking at stellar evolution here in this tour from Stephen. So
that's
we're
right.
kind of looking at it in reverse, though, right?
Sorry, I keep moving the image around, but we are sort of looking at it in reverse. But I was trying to get the trapezium stars in there nicely exposed for you guys.
Yeah. Wow, but and look at that. I call that thing the rainbow wall. That sort of thing, to the left of those three. Yeah, that thing right there is. I don't know if it has a name, but I've been calling it the rainbow wall for years, because in an optical telescope on that piece right there, that wall, you can see color in a big enough telescope with a clear enough night.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, absolutely.
I've literally seen, pinks and salmons and magentas and all those weird, and then chartreuses, which that's not true, but all those weird colors that no one ever really knows what they actually are. You kind of see those in there a little bit.
Yeah.
And even with the naked eye looking through a telescope, which is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a reason this is such a photographed and looked at object. It's amazing. It's just incredible how much detail you can see in this, and how much we've learned from it too. Honestly,
that's right. Yeah.
Spencer asked if the motion we saw earlier was a dithering. No, you were seeing the seeing. I was taking video instead of stacking, just to try to resolve as much of the little stars in the center as possible. It was actually a video of the seeing kind of blurring things out.
And I've never used an Astroberry or the Raspberry Pi for the controllers, but that is actually becoming a trend in amateur astronomy, to have your computer just ride the telescope, and then all you got to do is plug a monitor into the thing, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, we have some folks in our club who actually use the Astroberry Pi or similar type systems running on a Raspberry Pi to basically do everything from observatory control, roof control, things like that, to sequencing the imaging. So it's pretty amazing what you can get out of just a tiny computing platform like that.
Yeah, and imagine in the future these things will be, the size of postage stamps, and we can just weld them to the side of the scope, and then everything's wireless, and there you go. It's getting to be close to that these days. But Mir says most objects in the night sky are located within our own galaxy, correct? Yes. Are there observable objects between the galaxies?
There's not many.
Yeah, dwarf galaxies, I guess, really is the only really the only thing.
A few stragglers. The intergalactic wanderer.
Mm-hmm. That's a globular, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're relatively rare, though. I mean, actually, not relative. They are rare. There's not many that are between galaxies. It's mostly just empty space out there. And even if they are between galaxies, they're usually in the domain of some other galaxy, like they're orbiting something else.
Right.
Yeah, or going into it eventually. Yeah. So there's not much stuff between the galaxies, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, right? But most of the stuff in the universe has found a friend and kind of got in there. And wow, I can already see what we're looking at here. Fantastic, man. Look at that.
Well, we're going to get a little better on that. I forgot to turn my dark subtraction on. I turned it off for a second, so we'll get a little better here in a second.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means, but very good.
Well, let's do it. Come on.
This is IC 434, which is what I know it as, and then a lot of people know it as the Horsehead Nebula. Look at that.
Beautiful.
Look at that internal reflection.
Yeah, I was about to say that is not a comet down there. That is a star being naughty for us and just kind of getting in our way a little bit there.
That's not real. Nor is this. This is actually another internal reflection off another bright star just off to the left, which is actually responsible for the ionization here, making a hydrogen glow red. And
Alnitak, right?
Yeah, Alnitak's in the lower part.
Oh, okay.
There's another star on the left.
I think Alnitak's a bit brighter than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Alnitak is one of the leftmost star in Orion's belt from the northern hemisphere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it the most eastern star? Yeah. The Alnitak is the most eastern star.
Yep.
In that. Ben says, how big of a telescope do you need? Well, it depends on what you're trying to see, Ben, but for something like this, for like especially the Horsehead, you need a pretty big scope.
Yeah.
You need a really clear night. You need an H beta filter. Is that right? Yeah, H beta.
Yeah, that helps.
It helps. I have actually seen the Horsehead without a filter in my 22-inch because I didn't have it at the time an H beta, which was whatever. So you make do with what you got, and I was actually able to pull it out. So you just need a good night sometimes.
Although even in a large telescope without the right filters, it can be a little unimpressive, right?
Yeah. I noticed at first it's a struggle to bring it out initially.
It is. Yeah.
It's very low contrast.
Right.
It's very faint.
If the guy is not cooperating, it could be really tough.
But the seeing has to be really good. Yeah.
Yeah. But we took a look, I think, when we were at the El Dorado Star Party, through the night vision eyepiece, and
that was amazing.
It's just incredible, right?
Yeah, through the night vision, those PVS 14s, man, you don't need a filter, you don't need anything. That thing is there, and in fact, at 1x with those PVS 14s, you can easily see the Horsehead. And the flame is right there, and it's just like this area next to Alnitak, and you're just like, wow, there it is. You can't really make out the horse head, but you can make out the glowiness of it, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Rodrigo says, "Can you show us the Rosette Nebula?" Probably like 1/8 of it, but it's definitely in the area.
Yep. We're going there.
Rosette Nebula. By the way, we learned this just last week at the Houston Astronomical Society. Our guest speaker lives in Tulsa. Rosette Nebula, the official state nebula of Oklahoma. A lot of people didn't know that, right?
I had heard about that, Joe, but I didn't think that was actually true, and it is actually true that Oklahoma has a state nebula. Why doesn't Texas have a state nebula? First of all,
that's a great question. We started thinking the same thing, and I just thought, we need to, make good use of our politicians' times and lobby them to, have an official state nebula or something like that, right? Something
we demand a state nebula right now. All three of us, we have formed a super PAC, a super committee, and now we are going to put forth legislation. I don't know, I'm throwing out political words to where we can sequester or filibuster someone to produce a
sequilabuster, right?
A sequilabuster. Yeah.
Oh, man, but what would it be, though?
What object would we use as the official Texas?
We got to find one that looks like the state of Texas. That's what I think.
There's nothing else to really do.
Right.
Yeah. Or we could use the Horsehead because everyone thinks that all of us own horses here in Texas.
Cowboys. Yeah. That's
okay.
Yeah. We're gonna saddle up the Horsehead Nebula and go for a ride, Buckaroos. Yeehaw! I hope buckaroo isn't some weird term that I'm going to regret saying later.
It's going to turn out, buckaroos.
Cancel culture is going to get me, y'all.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So where are we at here? Oh, this is the Rosette, just like I said, 1/8 of it, right?
Not much of it, but we get the cluster out of the Rosette. Sometimes called the satellite cluster.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're out in that hole in the middle of the Rosette. Basically, this is the hole. You can see there's some darker splotches up here, and there's a little bright nebulosity over here. But yeah, it's so big that we kind of just look right through the middle of it. It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, we're looking at the most uninteresting part of the Rosette Nebula, but that's like, again, that's with a telescope this awesome. That's kind of, the program. I mean, it's a big nebula. Again, this is one of those ones that in the night vision 1x, which means no magnification, just 1 times zoom, right? This thing is a glowing orb of awesomeness, just kind of hanging out there to the left of Orion. Literally, like the book, turn left at Orion, and you'll see the Rosette.
Yeah, I'm gonna move the telescope a little bit. See what happens.
Stephen Hummel is doing this all from the dark skies of West Texas, out at the McDonald Observatory, which is 300 miles east of El Paso and 9,000 miles from where I live. So basically, that's how big Texas is.
Oh. Well, that's what happens when I move the telescope while I was taking a picture.
Yeah, we can't blame Travis for that one. That one we have to blame on the
Starlink formation there, huh?
It's a Starlink satellite constellation there. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll go away in a second.
The camera is a ZWO. Is that the 1600?
No, that's the mono one I have. This is a 071 MC Pro.
071 MC Pro. And zoom is just prime focus of the camera, Carlos. So, which is what, 3,000 millimeters or so? Stephen?
I think he's saying, are you on Zoom or the program, the software?
See, that's how in tune with astronomy I am. I didn't even notice that was a question.
I think I moved it too far. And anyway,
this is called this is StreamYard. So it's a different program altogether, but it's a great program. Ben, the North American Nebula is gone for the time being, unfortunately. That is in Cygnus and in Health, and it's no longer
right now.
Waiting for that.
I retired that joke a while back, but I brought it back just because it's fun. Gotta bring it back every once in a while. It's just not fun. The Eagle Nebula is in the summer sky, Spencer. So M16 is unfortunately no go for us tonight.
Right.
Yeah, unfortunately.
In the summer, we'll get back on it for sure. Wendy says, Stephen. Go ahead. Sorry.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm just keep moving it around, and I'll get it centered the way I want.
Yeah, we'll get one of these. Wendy says, Stephen and McDonald's programs, Deep Sky Dude and Haas, the Houston Astronomical Society. Which, by the way, the comment that is covering up Joe. He's the president of HAS down there. And there you go. Covered him up, and rightly so. Are keeping us sane during COVID. Well, thank you, Wendy. You are amazing for that. Yep. Thanks from Houston members. P.S. Deep Sky Dude and Haas met the same week last time. That's right. Yeah, we the Astronomical Society of Southeast Texas and the Houston Astronomical Society were sister clubs. We're just a few miles down the road from each other. Yep. And we met on the same night, which happens. And yeah, I think next month we'll be back on our normal schedule, so I'll be able to hang out with y'all, and y'all can come hang out with us.
Hang out with you, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like dual clubs
to the programs. Yeah, I see some people saying, like Spencer was talking about naming the state nebula for Texas instead of Eagle and North America, but that'll be the state nebula.
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay. I see. Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
Well, the Eagle Nebula.
I'm just kidding. I'm stupid.
I don't know. We got to find a nebula and petition our state and legislatures to do that, because if Oklahoma has a state nebula, why in the world? I mean, Texas is known for astronomy, guys. I mean, we have the McDonald Observatory. This is one of the most
observatory, Space City,
right?
Yeah, Johnson Space Center
or something. Yeah,
we gotta have a state cluster, a state globular, a state open. Well, I said that. A state nebula. We need that. A state galaxy.
Galaxy. Yes.
We already have a lunar feature, the lunar Texas. So that's there.
Yeah.
Contact your state representatives.
Spencer says we make a weak pack. That's true.
We need to get our talking.
We don't even really know what a pack means. We just know that it might mean y'all donate to us, and hey, we will take y'all's money because we're gonna go to Fiji with it. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all.
We'll stop off in Austin on the way there, though, right?
Yes, of course. That's we have to actually go to Austin to hop on the flight that goes to Fiji, right?
All right, what are we gonna look at next, guys?
Well, there is what is that? Can you do the spirograph?
Oh yeah,
Steven?
yeah.
IC 419. Yeah, it's a small planetary. Is it IC 419? I think, if my memory serves.
I don't know. I just typed in spirograph and it got it.
Oh, it did it. Wow.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you have a good program that looks through the night sky for you.
I was gonna say, Will, I'm amazed at your encyclopedic knowledge of these names, right? The IC names and the NGC names.
Well, a lot of it is just repetition, right? We talk about this a lot, where you really, a lot of these terms, all of us, we really have to kind of hear these terms over and over and over again, and we end up when we go out to these star parties, we end up looking at a lot of the same stuff a lot of the time, because a lot of it's warm-up objects. M42 for us here, that might be the first object we put it on because we need to warm up our eye. Maybe we just got back in from the lodge or somewhere, we had some hot cocoa and our night vision is sort of slowly accumulating back. So it's one of those things that, you just got to kind of over the years just sort of keep going, but thank you, man.
Same object can have different names depending on what catalog you're looking at, right? So
that's right.
We always call it M42, and then you bust out with the NGC 1976. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it was a good year, Yeah. I always try to remember them, by those names, because it makes them easier to look up later. Right. But I always, this IC object right here, I always have a saying about the IC catalog, that if it says IC, you probably won't
see it. Yeah.
So but that's not true for a lot of them. In fact, this one is definitely one that is not true. You can pull this in with an 8-inch Dobsonian, no problem. It'll be small, but it'll be there. Yeah, and you can see this is one of those planetary nebulas that busts all the rules when it comes to color and sort of the consistency of a planetary nebula. Why is this thing orange, Stephen? Why isn't it blue or bluish green like most other planetaries?
I put me on the spot. I'm pretty sure it's H alpha, but it could be other nitrogen too.
Yeah,
but nitrogen, Roman numeral 2. That's actually the ionized state of nitrogen I'm talking about. But it's a really interesting structure, and I'm going to pull up a Hubble view because this is one of those objects that's actually a lot better in the eyepiece than in the camera. I have had an amazing, absolutely mind-blowing view of this through the 82-inch telescope, and it looked almost exactly like this picture I'm going to show you here from the Hubble Space Telescope.
Oh yeah,
it really looked almost like that.
Oh.
Yeah, that was in the 80.
And the 82 inch, here.
Yeah,
that it looks like this almost. It's a truly bizarre thing. Look how almost like fluffy and textured it is. It's pretty crazy.
And it breaks the rules in that respect. Like most planetary nebulas don't have that splotchiness, that sort of, they're pretty, they're rings or orbs usually, they're fairly circular in this sort of thing. And this one's a weird one. Yeah. It's one of my favorites though, because of the color. Now it's another one where people always ask, can you see color in a telescope? Some objects, absolutely you can. Yes.
Yeah.
Typically it's planetary nebulas or comets or, some other kind of close thing. Typically galaxies are too far away to see real good color. Again, you see the oranges and so sometimes like yellows like this, but this is one of those planetary nebulas that stands out amongst the pack. It's right below Orion in Lepus, or is it Lupus or Lepus? Lepus, thank you. Which is a rabbit, which is, Lepus, right? Rabbits leap. So now you'll never forget that. And it's fairly close. I think it's within like 5,000 light years. I don't have the software up to look at it.
600 or something. I would always take distance to planetaries with a huge grain of salt, though, because it's really tough.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and but this is one of my favorite nebulas, and I believe it was either on the Herschel list or the the Caldwell list. I can't remember which one, but maybe both, because there's a few objects that crosstalk on those lists. But this is an object you can definitely see with an amateur telescope. It's not one that you should shy away from. In fact, all the planetary nebulas are something you should try unless they're 0.1 arc seconds across or whatever, arc minutes. You'd leave those alone because those are stellar usually. I have no idea how William Herschel found those, but some of them he did. Some of them his kid or his sister did. But this is one of those ones that you definitely need to check out for sure. For sure. Lloyd Overcash in the house, member of the Houston Astronomical Society, and he lives in Olympia, which is just right down the road from Mr. Hummel there, which is awesome.
And a wonderful astrophotographer too. So
absolutely, that guy is really good.
Yeah, he also has an Arcos, if I'm not mistaken.
Lloyd has one of everything. I think he's basically he's amassed an arsenal as far as the stuff goes. But yeah, definitely check out Lloyd Overcash's stuff. He does solar photography, deep sky, lunar, planetary. This guy just has a passion for the night sky.
Does it all, and it's all awesome. I mean, his solar photography is just incredible.
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah.
And what was cool is I met Lloyd at TSP. Like I knew him online for a while, and knew of him, and he met me. We met each other at TSP, the Texas Star Party, which is again just right down the road from Mr. Hummel there. And Lloyd was like, "Man, I love your work," and I'm like, "Are you serious? Like you're talking to me, telling me that you love my work? Like I take iPhone pictures of the moon that are blurry and out of focus, like, and you do these incredible stuff." So it was kind of nice when someone who actually knows what they're doing takes notice to your work. So, but guys, check out Lloyd Overcash, super nice guy. And I mean, when COVID's over, we're gonna go out and hang out at his place. He really has no choice; he can't kick us out. So we're gonna be down there.
Well, let's do that.
Yeah, and apparently he has like pads for visitors. So I've got my own pad, Joe. You got your own pad, and we're gonna crash Lloyd's place like 30 minutes. I'm on my way now. I'm actually packing a bag. So, I know what this is. Look at that. And wow, it's bright this year. Look at that.
Oh yeah, it's pretty bright. Yeah, this is Hubble's Variable Nebula.
Not Hummel's.
Yeah,
not Hubble's Variable.
one, but Hubble, as in the Space Telescope. And it's a very young star nestled within a cloud of gas and dust. And as the gas and dust sort of sweeps around it, sometimes holes open up and it illuminates this bright swath of gas and near it, and sometimes a darker cloud obscures the light. So it's kind of like shadow puppets on a wall. But it is actually pretty bright. Even when it is dim, it's still bright enough for this telescope and large telescopes to see. But I actually really, really enjoy this visually.
Yes.
And again, it does change over time. Not while we're watching, but over years you will definitely see changes in it.
Mm-hmm. Now this is I'll tell a quick story. One time I was sweeping the sky and I found a comet, and I was looking through stuff and I didn't see a comet in this particular area, and I was like, "Yay! I'm gonna be famous! Woo! I found a comet!" And then I realized it was Hubble's Variable Nebula, and that was a very sad day.
Of all the things that Messier thought looked like comets but weren't, how did he miss this one?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
It does look a lot like a comet in a lot of ways.
Yeah. In way too many ways. Yeah. And like you said, Stephen, like I looked at this object a couple years ago and it was not this bright, or maybe it was a year or 2 or 3 or 4. I can't exactly remember. But like you said, it's called Hubble's Variable Nebula because it, varies in brightness. And that's because of that star, what right down there at the bottom of it. Is a variable star. And like Stephen said, there's just some gas nearby. I don't think the gas is actually associated with the star, or is it, Stephen? I don't think it. I think it's actually like behind it.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's near it. It's not. It's forming. There's more gas around it, this part that we can't see because it's not illuminated. And the star is sort of swaddled in it. So it's. I would say it's associated. It's nearby.
Gotcha. Okay, but yeah, it does variable. It is variable. And so one year you'll look at it and you'll be like, "Whoa, cool!" and then the next time you'll show it to somebody because you're like, you got to see this cool thing that I found last year, and then it's barely there, and you're like, okay, awesome. I'm glad I took my time to show someone this. But this is the kind of stuff that you deal with in astronomy. But this is a cool one, man. I mean, this is I'm glad you put this one up, Stephen, because this is a very famous object, and Mr. Hubble, Edwin Hubble. I mean, I think we all should take a moment to remember him because he was just such a profound astronomer, probably one of the most profound in our time, or not our time, but y'all know what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, before our time, but
before our time,
in the 20th century,
his impact still being felt today. Absolutely.
That is exactly right, Joe. And James brings up an interesting point here, and one that I agree with wholeheartedly, that you need to hear a word or a term about a dozen times before it truly becomes a part of your lexicon or your arsenal of words, is what lexicon ultimately means. And that's exactly right. Monkey head? I don't know if is that one.
We'll give it a go. I'm giving another variable nebula a go.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
More famous one.
I was going to say, one of the members of the Houston Astronomical Society about 15, 16 years ago discovered a variable nebula as well, McNeil's Nebula.
Okay, yeah. I read about that recently because someone asked about it. I think Bob Snyder asked about it.
Oh, really?
In my program, and I'm like, I don't know about that. Because I talked about M78 in my program last week.
Okay.
And I wasn't super familiar with McNeil's Nebula, so
yeah, I think he discovered it when processing a picture of M78, our photo that he'd taken. So yeah, and it's variable. I think it disappeared for a period of time. I don't know if it's back, but
somebody stole it.
Yeah, there you go.
We're gonna look at T Tauri.
T Tauri, which is also in the constellation of Tauri.
Taurus. Tauri.
It's the Tauri Stellar Nebula.
It's also known as Heinz Variable Nebula.
Oh, Heinz. Okay.
Yeah,
like the ketchup.
Heinz.
Yeah, Heinz. Oh, not Heinz. Heinz 57 Nebula.
Like hindsight.
Like hindsight, exactly.
Let's take it.
Thor's helmet is actually in what is that? Monoceros? Monoceros? Monoceros?
Sort of southern.
Jim says that I guess the Hubble variable is a Herbig-Haro object. Okay. Interesting. I wasn't aware of that.
All right, so this is a much fainter one. It's another variable nebula too. But
and you said this is the Heinz 57 Nebula?
Yes, indeed. We can kind of see it already. It's pretty faint.
Yeah, just a little smudge there to the left of that star.
Yeah, we're gonna reset it again in just a minute. But there's that red star is T Tauri, and it is one of the T Tauri is now associated with a whole classification of stars called T Tauri stars, and they're basically proto-stars or pre-main sequence stars. So they're stars that are still swathed in sort of the nebula that they were born from, and they're kind of just now, flickering into life. There's a great article in Sky and Telescope this month about T Tauri and other stars like it. So it turns out, even though it's called that, and we've called other stars T Tauri stars because they're like this star, it turns out actually that T Tauri is not a typical T Tauri star.
Wow, that's irony, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the irony for sure. The star which we've named other stars after turns out to be kind of unusual because it's very young. It's perhaps only a few 100,000 years old, and now actually it's a triple star system, and there's one that got kicked out, and there's one that's very, very close. They're not visible. This is only realized in kind of the 80s and 90s, and that kind of screwed up our theories of stellar dynamics a bit. But yeah, it is still very young, and the nebula at the moment isn't very bright. But yeah, you can see there is a little bit of a nebula right there next to T Tauri.
Now, Stephen, so we see the bright star down into the left that has nice diffraction spikes, round star. Everything looks round in this image, except for that T Tauri star looks sort of wrong or elongated, and I'm assuming that is gas and dust around that star being illuminated, sort of distorting that image for us, right?
You know what? You're right. Yeah, I mean, if you look a little bit,
it's like a sad face, almost, kind of like on the side, or like an eye, almost.
It's kind of got a little bit extra over here and over there. If I go to another star, there's another star.
Yeah, there's one.
They don't really have that, do they? Yeah.
No, so I guess there's associated dust that's sort of in that area. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a good catch.
And again, those green, that's not, alien eyes trying to look at us. Again, that's hot. Those are Hot Pixels, which would be a great band name. Hot Pixels. Oh, and then we got a satellite, so we know what we have to do. Sorry, buddy. He's not watching tonight, but I'm going to definitely have to message him and be like, dude, we blamed you so much the other night.
Your next album needs to have a song called Blame Travis.
That is a very, very true statement, Joe. Yes, that is a very, very true statement. And I think you're going to play bass on that one. So
that's right.
It'll be a collab song for sure.
I've got it ready right now. So
oh yeah, look at that. Now that's an acoustic bass, sir. That's a very
it's a Taylor GS Mini acoustic bass, so it's a shorter neck than normal, but it is a breeze to play. Absolutely love playing.
Oh, look who showed up!
Oh yeah, look, there he is.
Oh, okay. He was gonna lurk for a while.
Yeah, he's just lurking out there, weirdo. For those of y'all that don't know Travis, he is the reason Starlink is a problem. Anything that bad happens at Boca Chica, Travis.
The source of calamity for anything astronomy related.
Yeah, I've been sick for the last several days. Travis's fault. Yeah, so Travis wouldn't wear his mask when he came over and slept on my couch. So Travis. And Bob Snyder says, thanks, Travis. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Travis. No, of course, no. Travis is a friend of ours, of course, a great guy, and he does work at SpaceX, which is why we blame him for everything. But good to have you, Travis. And now this is Thor's helmet. Look at that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Pretty noisy, but it'll get better.
It'll get better, yeah. Thor's helmet is, I honestly, right now, without looking it up, I have no idea what Thor's helmet is, Stephen. So can you shed some photons on that for us?
It's a lot like the Crescent Nebula. It's a Wolf-Rayet star.
Okay.
It's a really, really big, massive star. Believe that guy. It's extremely massive and very, very hot, and it's shed layers out, kind of in its preparing to die phase. So it's written its will, you could say.
That's Will and Testament.
Yeah, and so there's this bubble around it, and the stellar winds and intense heat and radiation coming off that star are ionizing the gas. So this used to be part of it. So it will eventually go supernova and probably annihilate that structure, but it's still in a giant phase, kind of transitioning to the perhaps red giant, but it's still pretty blue. And it is, again, it's a Wolf-Rayet star, which is kind of its own thing. That they're hundreds of thousands of times more luminous than the sun usually. I believe this is 5,000 light years away. I'll have to look it up. But
so I feel like you're correct on that. And Spencer says I always say monoceros, like rhinoceros. So I just completely ruined all that. That's exactly right though, Spencer. It is a unicorn, so I would guess it'd be monoceros.
I've gone both ways with it, but I prefer monoceros. But I have no clue. I'm just making it up at this point.
Yeah,
let's just.
By the way, this is 12,000 light years away. So
12,000. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty far. Actually,
that's a long walk.
It must be bright.
Yeah. And this is a very photogenic object. And that's really the only way you're going to see it, unless you have military grade night vision in a half-meter telescope, which some
people do, right?
Yeah, I got one coming in the mail. You know what I'm saying? But no, it's a beautiful object, and it's very photogenic, and that's why typically you see a lot of photos of this, but you don't hear a lot of visual astronomers like, oh, I picked out Thor's helmet the other night. That doesn't typically happen, although I'm sure parts of this thing are visible with certain filters on the right night with the right scope. Maybe something like the 82-inch or the 100-inch Hooker on Mount Wilson, something like that. Probably should have said the Hooker telescope after that, because make sure they don't sound clip me later. But this is a pretty epic object that again, it's really photographic, and you can see that as Stephen has been letting the photons sort of saturate the camera and sort of come in and stacking these images. We're getting color just like in some of the other objects. You got those blues up at the top. You got that band of red down there at the bottom. It's beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, you can kind of see it faintly kind of extends off in this direction as well.
Yeah,
a little bit over there. It's much fainter in that direction, but.
And I'm assuming that's a carbon star to the right there. That's pretty bright, huh?
It could be a red giant. Could be a carbon star. It's pretty red. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one right there.
A couple nice red ones in the vicinity of that.
Yeah. Another one there. Yeah.
Okay, Van says Nos Ros. See, I even ruined that. Monoceros. Yeah. I'm still gonna call it Monoceros because I like to say that, and I like to call Ophiuchus Epiphycus.
Epiphycus? Oh, yeah. I've never heard that before.
Oh, that's a new one.
I picked that up from Nikki, who is one of the Australians who came from the land down under all the way to the Texas Star Party. And the first conversation I have with Nikki and he's a guy from New Zealand. He's got dreads down to his knees. Super cool, amazing guy. Instant best friend of mine, basically. And, we're sitting down for our first conversation, and he's like, oh, have you seen the constellation Epiphycus? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, it's got to be like something south of Telescopia.
Yeah, right.
Something I've never seen from my hemisphere, Epiphycus, some cool thing. And I'm like, is that in the southern hemisphere? No, this is Epiphycus. And I'm like, how do you spell it? And he's like, O-P. And I'm like, oh, you mean Ophiuchus? And he's like, yeah, man, I'm just testing you. And I'm like, okay, cool. I guess I passed the test because I knew that was Ophiuchus and not Epiphycus. But now I only call it Epiphycus because it's hilarious.
It's gonna stick for a little while, Will.
Yeah. Hashtag Epiphycus.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the Texas constellation. The Texas
the official constellation.
Epiphycus. And if you look at Ophiuchus, it's just the stupid constellation ever. It's way too big. It's so spread out. There's nothing in it. Maybe 2 Messiers in the whole thing. And whoa, what is this? Is this a live view of Sirius?
Yeah, good guess. Yeah, you didn't have a lot of information to work with, but you got it.
Sirius Clark?
See if you can see Sirius B at all. I'm not really sure if it's in a proper position. But
it might be off in one of those diffraction spikes, but let's see.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Now, I've seen Sirius B in my telescope right at dusk. In a visual telescope, if you catch Sirius right before it gets dark, you can easily see Sirius's companion, which is a small little star, and it's pretty easily doable if you catch it before it gets too dark. If you wait like now to do it with a visual telescope, you won't catch it. It's in the glare, but
just messing with settings. Maybe I can. It's gonna be
pull it out.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it's a good time to try to catch it, right? Just given the nature of the distance between the pup.
There it is. It's off that one. Yep, there it is, right there. Yep, that's it.
Yeah. Saw it a second ago, I think, Stephen, when he turned it down just a bit. You could see just a little lobe popping off of it.
Just a little growth on the upper. Yeah. You're right. It's right. Look at how close it is to the glare of the star itself. Yeah. And we're lucky because I think over the next decade or so, Stephen, maybe you can help me with this one, that it's going to actually get closer to Sirius, where we're actually going to kind of lose it for decades.
Let's see if I could do any better than I've been doing.
While you're doing that, Travis says, so if we were able to jump to galaxies at light speed, wouldn't we have all different names for these based on our perspective? I would assume, yeah. I mean, I guess if you could, well, I guess faster than light speed, you'd have to be able to get there or whatever. But I don't know. I'm not sure. Look at that though. Yeah. Right there. Now, Sirius is,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was going to say Sirius is what, 8.5 light years away. So
yeah,
it's west southwest. Yeah, that's right.
That's it.
Yeah.
And look, when the seeing comes through, Stephen, it actually becomes pretty obvious. But then you can see the sky sort of
and it's
mixing everything up.
Pretty low too.
It's fairly low right now. Yeah.
So. Yeah, there it is. And for those who aren't familiar, this is actually pretty hard to see. Sirius is the brightest star in the sky, so hopefully wherever you live, you can see Sirius. But Sirius B is its little companion, and it's notorious for being quite difficult to see. It's a white dwarf. It's actually the closest white dwarf to us, little remnant star. And it's in orbit around Sirius, but Sirius is just so many times brighter, it just hides in its glare. If it wasn't right next to it, it'd be pretty easy. But it's just right there, really close. Again, it's kind of in there, and it'll kind of come and go. There it is, a little bit better.
And James says, Will, you totally just look like that Leo DiCaprio pointing at the TV meme when you were pointing at the companion star. You know, I'm going to take that as a huge compliment, because Leo's a strapping young lad. So thank you. Thank you. Unfortunately, we had Joe completely covered up there.
No, so it's fine. I was going to say it's a
your big screen
for Sirius B. And the rotation, if I recall correctly, when I saw it before, I mean, it's pretty varied in terms of distance. So I think that it ranges from I can't remember what it was, but there are times when it's really, really close, and other times when it gets much further. But again, like you said, just the sheer brightness of Sirius A makes it a difficult object to see, regardless of how far it is. But I think right now, one of those times we want to catch it, because it's, if I'm not mistaken, getting closer.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and we got, whoa, that was awesome looking. No, but that was awesome looking, because again, like we've been saying, there's gonna be a period where seeing Sirius B is gonna be seriously hard.
Yeah.
And Spencer laid it out for us there. 8.4 mag, that's Sirius B, so that's dimmer than negative 1.4. I know that seems counterintuitive to maybe those that don't know how stellar magnitudes work. It is weird. I think of it like golf. The more negative, the brighter, the better. So the less strokes you have, the brighter, the better. So if you're a magnitude 8.4 or plus 8.4, you're dimmer than anything 0 and negative. That the negative that's actually on the top end. I know it's weird. That's how it's
magnitude, because it's a logarithmic scale. I think each magnitude, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, isn't it about 2.5 times brighter for each step of magnitude?
Yeah, that's right.
2.5.
Yeah, 2.51 or something, but
2.51 or something like that. So, for each step in magnitude, let's say you go from -1 to 0, that's a 2.5 time difference in brightness. And then, from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, so on and so forth. Each one of those steps, 2.5 times. So if you do the math, it's much dimmer for Sirius B versus Sirius A.
Yeah, seriously dimmer. Which I don't do math, so I let Joe and Stephen handle all that for me. I'm a musician, not a mathematician. I'm an athlete, not a mathlete.
Not a fighter, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, lover, not a fighter. So I don't fight with equations. I let them sit there and do their own thing over there. Equations, just sit over there. I'm more of a hands-on kind of artsy guy. Look at that.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me to get. This is NGC 1365, and it's very low. In fact, it's not really above the wall of the dome for very long at all. I'm only actually using just like 90% of the mirror. So yeah, it's also known as the Great Barred Spiral Galaxy, NGC 1365. Very, very far south object. I think this is APOD a couple days ago or something.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe I'm misremembering it. I think it's really fascinating. It's got this double bar.
Yes.
Bar here and another bar there, and they sort of mingle and intertwine there at the center. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, this is a past collision. Obviously most galaxies are at some level of absorbing another one, right? But these that look like this are closer to mergification, if you will, than like, say, the Andromeda galaxy or something like that. where they're less disturbed, I guess. But this is beautiful, man. This is what, in Fornax, I think.
Yeah, it's in Fornax. Yeah, the furnace.
That's what the software is telling me. 56 million light years, y'all. So again, for those of y'all that may not know what light years means, this object putting the light out that hit Stephen's sensor tonight, that light left there about 56 million years ago. So we're looking at what the galaxy looked like 56 million years ago. And then, if we wanted to see tonight's light, right, from this galaxy, well, we would have to either go there, which is basically impossible, or wait 56 million years and see what, the light from that galaxy looked like from 2021, right? Which is a weird paradox, but that's light speed is finite. It's not an infinite thing.
Yeah.
Had a little trouble lining frames there for a second, but it's struggling to align these things. I think it's getting glare from my computer screen off the wall, kind of.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it's super low. I think that thing is. I didn't even look at see what. I mean, it's very, very low down there. But
yeah,
that's a beautiful galaxy.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's an incredible galaxy. I wish it were up higher. I wish I was in the southern hemisphere to really get a good long exposure of it. But it's tricky, and because it's so low, we view it through a lot of atmosphere, which definitely hurts the image quality a great deal.
Yeah, it's only 20 now from here, from where I'm at in Texas. I think you're a little bit further south than me, but it's 21 degrees above the horizon here. So,
yeah,
which is
22.5 degrees here.
Okay, so that's like below the threshold of what normally astronomers will photograph and stuff like that. But the fact that we're getting it at all is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Usually I wouldn't bother with something this low, but I'll make an exception. It's such an incredible galaxy.
The symmetry, though, look at the symmetry in those elongated arms. That one goes up, one goes down.
Yeah,
and it's just, I'm at a loss for words with that one. I've never seen this galaxy with that much detail.
I haven't either. That's a nice image. Kind of reminds me of a TIE fighter a little bit, though.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
A spinning TIE fighter, that's sort of on fire. It's sort of falling into something. I don't know. That's impressive. And you can note the dust lanes cutting across that core slices it right in half. There's enough dust there to obscure that core from our perspective really, really well. And there's multiple dust lanes, it looks like. They're sort of folded in and mixed in there. Yeah,
it's unique in that regard. Well, there's a couple others like it, but it's rare to see that. Yeah. Thank you, Brad.
Yeah.
That was something I had very little time or resources to dedicate to, but I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.
And that video is shared on my Deep Sky Dude Facebook page. And it's also on the McDonald Observatory YouTube page. And you definitely need to check it out if you're into dark sky. What should I say? Dark sky promotion or dark sky. If you're a dark sky advocate, there we go. There's tons of great info in there that Stephen laid out. So y'all definitely need to check that out. It's very well narrated. And it has some beautiful footage in there. 10 seconds is my footage, but hey, I made it. I made the cut.
That's yours in there.
I made the cut, y'all. Woo! Robbie says it blows me away still that many objects light is so old that they don't even exist anymore. It's old, and some I would say that's probably true for some objects, but most of these objects do definitely exist. However, they don't exist where we're seeing them. Right. Even the moons of Jupiter. When you look at the moons of Jupiter, and it's in our solar system, let's say the moons look like this. But if you could, get the light instantaneously, they'd maybe look like this, where they're just a little bit in different positions than they actually are. And that's Jupiter, y'all. It's just right down the road.
Right.
Some objects, you may think they're in that particular position, but they're long gone by now, which is fascinating.
Yeah, I guess the closest you can get are stars that are on the verge of, nova or supernova, things like that. There's talk, has Betelgeuse gone supernova yet? Which a lot of people don't think it has, right? No telling when it will. But some estimates still say another 10,000 years. If it's 450 to 600 light years away, we wouldn't know for 450 to 600 years, right? It's just one of those things you'd have to, until it happens, you just don't know. And that's an amazing.
That's right. Yeah. And Brad says he shared it on the Sidewalk Astronomer page, which is one of Brad's page. Now, non-COVID, Brad is a fantastic outreach astronomer, lives out there in Austin, and takes his telescope out and shows people the galaxy, or the solar system, essentially, from city lights, which is amazing. Brad does really cool work out there in the Austin way. If you're around Austin, definitely look up Brad at the Sidewalk Astronomer, and go take a peek through his scope once all this madness is over.
Absolutely. This is, what was this? NGC 2362. And it's so low also that I'm clipping the wall, and that's why it has an extra
I was about to,
spike there.
So that's the wall diffraction spike, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, there it is.
Yeah. Now, this is another beautiful open cluster. I'm assuming it's in the southern sky. Is that correct?
It's southeast. It's below Sirius right now. It's just, it will rise much higher, but it's in Canis Major.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, Canis Major. Okay. It's a beautiful. And I'm assuming that all these stars are associated, including the big bright one there in the middle, which has an extra diffraction spike. We'll call that the wall diffraction spike, if you will. Which should slowly change, I guess, huh? As time goes on, it'll sort of.
Yeah. As it tracks, it'll that extra spike will move. But M46, is that high enough yet?
I don't know. Is that Gemini? Should be.
Oh yeah, it's actually a little higher than this. Yeah, I wanted to do that earlier, and I said, "Oh, too low."
And Brad brings up a cool point. It has an awesome planetary nebula in it, which is
yeah. This actually got two of them. One's kind of actually in the background, but we'll see the brighter one that's in the foreground of the cluster here in a couple seconds.
James, maybe, but predicting a supernova is like predicting I don't know, a massive earthquake or something.
Yeah, we are overdue, but it's hard to be sure because we think there are 1 or 2 supernovae per century in the Milky Way, but we only really see and observe a relatively small part of the Milky Way easily. So they could be there just on the other side, and we wouldn't see it.
Yeah. Or if we lived in the Firecracker Galaxy, then
then we would have them every other weekend. Yeah, it's a weekend event over there every 4th of July. That's why they call it fireworks.
Another one, yeah.
Jeremy says, never saw Sirius B before. Thank you for showing. Greetings from Memphis. Well, hello, Memphis, and we're glad that you got to see. Actually, Jeremy is, I think, the president of the Memphis Astronomical Society. I think I ran across his account on Instagram on accident because he was using the Deep Sky Dude hashtag, and I'm like, who's this guy? Oh, cool. He's a fellow president, which we got between Jeremy, Joe, and I. There's 3 presidents for astronomical societies right here in the same room. So welcome, Jeremy.
Wow. Welcome.
And Stephen is the president of his own astronomy club. It's the Hummel Astronomical Society. Membership 1. Although I'm going to pay my dues next year or this year for 2021.
Yeah, you're overdue. Okay.
Yeah. I actually owe the Hummel Astronomical Society a lot of money. So, and at least I think it was like a McDonald's sandwich or something that I owe you from a while back. So we're going to make that happen. I can't remember why I owe you. I think somebody dropped some cash in. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to definitely buy him a sandwich.
That's right.
But it'll be a little stale by the time I get there, though, because I think the nearest McDonald's is like what? Oh, well, it's Alpine. So that's not too bad.
Yeah.
I was going to say Fort Stockton, but
Yeah, Fort Stockton would be a little cold by the time you got there.
It wouldn't make it. It's so far of a drive. I'd probably eat all the sandwiches before I got there.
Go to waste, right?
Yeah. And Travis says, it's bedtime. You guys are awesome as always. You're awesome, Travis. I know we blame you for a lot, but we appreciate you hanging out with us, my friend.
Thanks for joining us.
Now, this is another open cluster, Stephen, but this one has clearly something wrong with it. Like, what's going on here? What is this?
Oh, it got a little rotten. It got a little fungus there. Yeah,
Little growth growing in there. We got to get it looked at, but that's it's a culture, right? It's a petri dish culture.
Exactly. Yeah. No, yeah, it's a planetary nebula. It's a little dying star that's in the foreground. It's not actually part of the cluster of stars. And well, it blew up, or it puffed up, didn't blow up. Blew off its outer layers a few thousand years ago. Formed that little nebula. That's probably something like what our sun will do when it dies in 4.5–5 billion years. So something to look forward to. And yeah, there's another one in there, but it's much fainter and smaller. I don't know if it's going to come out in this short exposure, but there are actually two, and the other one's 5,000 light years away. Well, in the background, and it's much smaller. It's called the Calabash Nebula or the Rotten Egg Nebula.
Which is a great name for it.
Both of them,
now,
right?
Yeah. And the beautiful part is in your image, we're getting those blues and the reds around the outside.
Yeah, you can definitely see the layer of color there. There's a red on the outside, blue on the inside, and a kind of hole in the middle.
Now, this visually, I've seen this exact. I mean, anybody who's done the Messier list has seen this open cluster, easily done. I think even binoculars can pull this cluster in. Now, you're going to need more than that for the planetary nebula. I say it stupid every time. I'm sorry. It's habit. I did that during the Planetary Nebula Award because I was so annoyed with some of these planetary nebulas. But this is definitely visible with a big enough scope. I think maybe even an 8-inch, but like maybe a 10 or a 12 can easily pull in this planetary nebula. I mean, I've seen it in a telescope. I don't know if you guys have or not. I'm sure Stephen has for sure in his 8-inch.
Yeah, in that, that's what I started out with. So,
which is like I started out with a broken pair of binoculars taped to a broken tripod. So, you can...
binoculars, but yeah, first telescope. Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, that's what I had. I had a broken pair of I think it was roof prism binoculars. Only one side worked, and that side was sketchy. And I literally electrically taped the binoculars to a tripod because I realized quickly as a kid you can't hold binoculars steady enough to see any detail in anything. I mean, anybody that has binoculars knows this. That's why I never recommend binoculars to amateurs. I just don't. I know a lot of people do. I don't.
I do, and I say get a tripod.
Yeah, and a tripod. Yeah, and tape them up. But it's really it was fascinating to me as a kid because I saw all these star charts. I saw the constellation Orion. And there's M42, and it shows the fuzzy thing, and I'm like, I gotta see this. So I taped the pair of binoculars to the broken tripod that my mom gave me, and I put it on Orion, and I saw the Orion Nebula, and that was it. That was my brain exploded, and I mean, here we are today. I mean, after all these years, so you never know what it's going to be that's going to capture your attention for this kind of stuff. And if you're a kid out there or somebody that doesn't have a lot of cash to throw at this kind of stuff, go to a garage sale and try to find a broken pair of binoculars, look through them, make sure they kind of work. And then give it a shot because, humble beginnings, are not something to be scoffed at. That's just the way the universe works. Sometimes we don't have enough cash to drop it on a $50,000 RCOS 16-inch Ritchie Crescent telescope, which is like what we have there. And that's just the scope, by the way, y'all. That mount down there is probably more than the scope itself.
Not close, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty pricey.
You weren't able to get the Calabash Nebula, huh?
No, I don't really think I'm not sure. It's pretty faint.
It is. It's an incredible object, though, and I learned about it back in June, July. One of our main presentation speakers for the Houston Astronomical Society, he's actually a computer scientist, and he was there to talk about how they're using, some of the data they're collecting to figure out why it has such a strange shape. So if you're behind a computer, look up Calabash Nebula and just look at just how elongated that is, and it just kind of defies what we know of these types of objects, and just really, really fascinating. So.
Yeah, I've never really heard of it.
Yeah, it's very faint and yeah, very oddly shaped. I could probably pull up a Hubble image of it here without too much trouble.
And it's not really symmetrical, if I recall, Stephen. Is that right? I think there's a little difference in the symmetry from one lobe to another. Or I could be mistaken there.
A picture will reveal that.
All will be revealed with photons.
But again, going through the computer models that they were showing us and the dynamics of the movement and whatnot, it was just absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it is very asymmetrical. You're right. Yeah. It's like one's progressed much further and expanded much further than the other side. So
exactly. So,
yeah, I have to recant my statement. I have heard of the Rotten Egg Nebula. So yes, okay. I've never heard it called the Calabash Nebula. I guess is that the guy or woman who discovered it?
An item. It refers to the shape of it.
Okay.
But
Calabash is like a gourd.
Oh, and if you don't know what a gourd is, it's a pumpkin, or
it's in the family, right? Yeah,
an elongated pumpkin or a squash.
A squash, something like that. Zucchini.
So
that's what a calabash is. Well, see, you learn all kinds of new things on these.
Yeah. I take it back. It is actually part of M46. Apparently, it has the same distance, radial velocity, and proper motion according to Wikipedia. So, I'm wrong about that one. I think there was debate about it.
New science always comes to light, which is the beautiful thing about people are like, well, we can't demote Pluto because I learned in 12th. In all my grades of high school or whatever that it was a planet. You can't do that. Well, that's what science literally does. We take info that we used to have, and when new info comes to light, we amend it. That's the way it goes. And what is this, Stephen? This is a galaxy, obviously.
Yeah, this is NGC 2841, and it is also known as the Tiger Eye Galaxy. And let me zoom in a little bit here.
Clearly looks like a tiger's eye to me. I've seen lots of tigers in my life, and immediately I said, "Look at that tiger's eye."
Yeah, it is. Well, it's a flocculent galaxy, so it's very tightly wound, kind of like a spiral where you can't really even tell where the spirals begin or end. So it's a lot like M63, the Sunflower Galaxy. It's pretty similar to that. And it's in Ursa Major, so not so far from M63, although that's a little further in the sky. It's not up yet, but yeah, it's a really nice galaxy. I think there's a lot of galaxies in this part of the sky, so there's some stiff competition, but I think it's worth looking at.
And I do see the tiger's eye.
Yeah,
staring at you right there. It's
yeah, I'm scared, and so that's definitely a meat-eating animal glaring at me from across the cosmos. But what I love about it is sort of that Cassini division that's sort of in there. It's this ring that sort of goes around the whole thing. Is that a dust lane? I'm assuming, or
dust lane? Yeah.
I
have an deeper image somewhere, but
now that reminds me of like a mini Andromeda, because if you look at Andromeda, it has those dust lanes sort of mid to halfway out, and it's sort of even almost in the same orientation there.
Well, I don't know. I wonder if you'll still say that when you see a deeper image.
Probably not.
Oh, there's that.
Oh, look at that. The power of the internet. Yeah. No, not at all anymore. Wow, but look at the mottling in that. That is just beautiful structure. Yeah. This is one of Stephen's images from his binocular setup there. It's an iPhone image from Stephen there.
Yeah, there's a lot. The live image obviously isn't as impressive because that one was quite a few hours, I think.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Yeah, it's a faint sucker to get the extended area out, but it is actually big. If you expose long enough, it does sort of extend out to over here and over here.
Wow,
it's quite large. Got an extended halo.
That's a beautiful galaxy, and I mean that's just it's out there all by its lonesome, really. I mean, there's probably some stuff around it that we're just not picking up because not deep enough exposure, this and that, but. It's just sort of a galaxy out there just kind of doing its thing. And again, for those of y'all that may not be too familiar with this kind of stuff, all the stars you see in this frame, every single star that you see is in our galaxy. The fuzzy disk in the middle is not in our galaxy. It's very, very, very far away. But every point of light that you see that has those diffraction spikes on it and is sort of like a bright spherical object is in our Milky Way. Sometimes we get lost in that, like, oh, that galaxy has a bright star on the left-hand side. Well, no, that's just a foreground star that's sort of in our galaxy, sort of in the way. And if you get that sort of perspective, sometimes you can almost in your brain almost imagine this stuff in 3D. Yeah. It's kind of interesting.
The way I've kind of imagined it recently, and this may be a bad analogy, right? But when you're looking at an object like that, the distant galaxy, if you're thinking about it, maybe an object, 7, 8, 9, 10 miles away. Let's say you're up in an airplane. Those foreground stars are just, the specks inside of your eye, right? The things that you see floating in your eye, practically where they are relative to some of these objects, right?
That's true. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, it's the floaters in your eye that are getting in the way of you seeing the city from afar. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
and this is a very,
but yeah.
Well, it definitely works though, and it's kind of hard to explain some of this stuff. Sometimes you need analogies. 90% of the time, you have to figure out some way to relate this, because none of this stuff is immediately obvious to our tiny, soft human brains. Our puny human brains.
What's not immediately obvious to me is that this is a cigar.
Yeah, cigars don't burn from the middle, typically.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the M82, the cigar galaxy. I'm going to look at this, and we'll look at M81, its neighbor, in a minute, and I think that's going to be it for me tonight.
Yeah.
But we look at a lot of cool stuff, and
we've had a cavalcade of, I don't even know why I use that word, but just had a cavalcade of objects here, a cornucopia of objects even. I'm pulling out all the weird words for some reason, but hey, it's the fever. So
I like Spencer's statement there with the mnemonic to remember the planets.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've learned. So growing up, that's what we learned, and my kids are learning that it's not 9 pizzas; it's just nachos now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've always said my very educated mother just served us nothing because nachos is funnier, but nothing is.
Again, it's like, would an educated mother serve nachos? I mean, what goes into that stuff? So
yeah, that's not very healthy. It's not organic,
exactly.
Unless it's organic nachos.
Is it locally sourced? Farm to table.
Is this soy USDA approved? Soy nachos.
I think touched the scope there and kind of jiggled it.
That was me. I'm sorry. I moved my chair.
Yeah, fingers to yourself.
So this galaxy right here, Van says, this is obviously their favorite galaxy. This galaxy has a special place in my heart because not long ago, a few years, maybe more than a few now, it had a supernova in it. And a bright one too. And I was actually able to, at an outreach event, show the general public, people who had never really even seen a galaxy before. I was able to tell them, okay, look at the galaxy. You see, it's this elongated thing, and there's a bright star in there. And right now there's really not. But in that galaxy was an exploding star at the time of that outreach event, and so I was able to show people just off the street, sort of, this supernova in the galaxy.
Again, a star that exploded about 12 million years ago.
Right. Since we're having the technical issues, there we go. Hey, Travis.
Thanks, Travis. Breaking my toe.
Aiden, this is a 16-inch Ritchie Crescent or Ritchie Crescent galaxy. Ritchie Crescent telescope, 16-inch.
Yeah. I think it's hard. It's because it's Ukrainian or something in his name, so I think you pronounce everything. There's nothing like silent in it. That's what I learned.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to reset the exposure there since it got nudged or something. I'm not sure why it just sort of... I think my guider was confused for a second, but...
Yeah, that can happen. Guiders are the worst. And there it is. Van says supernova 2014J.
That was it. Yep.
That was it. 2014.
Didn't seem like it was that long ago, though, but I guess it was. Yeah.
I know. And I was thinking 2015, and I'm like, dang, that was like 6 years ago. Whoa. And now it's 7. This object that I showed people was 7 years ago, which is just absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
And there's its companion. There's a neighbor galaxy right there.
Yeah.
M80. That's 82 or 81.
81. Yeah.
And it's easy to remember that these two, the Bode's Nebula, or M81 and 82, the last one he showed you looked like a 1, right? The cigar galaxy looks like a 1. That means it's M82. It's backwards. It's wrong. That's how my puny human brain remembers these two galaxies and their numbers.
Well, with the right eyepiece and telescope, you can see them in the same field of view.
Yeah,
absolutely.
This one tends to be bigger in the eyepiece than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Different orientation. Yeah.
Yeah, field of view nicely here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this since we're talking about awards a little bit and being two objects, there's an astronomical league award called Two in the View, where you use a low power telescope and you find two objects near each other, and I believe this is one of those groupings where there's two in the view, and so this is up in the Ursa Major region, which is a very everybody knows the Big Dipper, which is an asterism, not a constellation, but the Ursa Major is the constellation, and that's where they hang out.
Yeah. Bob asks, oh yeah, I'm using PhD too. I'm not using multi-star guiding though, because my field of view of my guider is so small.
You're using a pick-off prism, right?
Well, it's better. It's not that. It's just a smaller sensor, but it's actually not pick-off. Technically the main imaging camera is pick-off, and it's called an on-ag, and you can Google it if you're curious. If you're not, then
on-axis guider, yeah.
Yeah. But there's just, particularly in this part of the sky, there aren't a lot of stars that are bright in infrared, and it's infrared guider. So I usually just pick one and it works fine. I don't really need 2 stars, Works fine.
Especially for this, because we go from object to object so fast. Also, that mount behind you there, and I'll switch the camera real quick, is pretty darn good. Also, it never gets taken down and moved and whatever. That mount is there for perpetuity. Stephen Hummel will be an old man, and that mount and everything will be handed down to the next generation of McDonald employees out there. So
probably the case. Yeah, that's the case with some other scopes here for sure. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean the 82 outdates us all. I think you can combine all of our ages together, and the Otto Struve is older than all of us. Spencer says this is almost full circle. We talked about the French term for UFOs. They call them flying cigars, not flying saucers. Therefore, it's cigares volants.
Cigar volant.
Cigar volant. Interesting. And that was probably pretty offensive that we threw that that over-exaggerated accent.
Hey, that's my 6 years of French right there coming into play.
Oh, okay. And I was just mimicking Joe. So if you have any complaints about that, you can give them to the Astro Joe right there. There he is. We can give you his PO box here in a minute if you want that.
Or you could blame Travis for whatever I say.
We could absolutely do that. That is always on the table. We never remove that option from the table. And as we're closing it out here, Juan, wants to know why the galaxies have a circular form. Stephen, I bet that's a pretty good one for you, huh?
Well, not all of them are circular, but they're generally kind of round, and basically, it's conservation of angular momentum. In English, if you have a big ball of gas and stars or whatever, and it's all kind of floating around, gravity is going to make it clump together. But it'll also have some sort of spin to it. And you average out all the chaotic motion, everything flying around. Whatever left over is the direction it'll be spinning in. And as it spins, it will tend to kind of draw itself out into a disk. It's the same thing with our solar system. It's the same thing with Saturn's rings. There's the same kind of pattern. Things will tend to form disk shapes. Now, the spiral structure is a little more complex, but they're kind of like waves in the material But that's basically what's causing them to all be sort of round in general. Generally, some sort of disc or spiral shape is just conservation of angular momentum.
That's what they have to be.
Yeah, thanks. Talk about the HET, and if you've used it. So the way the HET works, in terms of like time on it, is an astronomer says, I want you at the Hobby Eberly telescope to look at X or Y or Z, and the time allocation committee will look over your proposal and say, okay, yeah, you can have this, and then you get a priority. You don't actually come out to use the telescope because it's so complicated that there's actually just a staff entirely dedicated to running it. And also for COVID safety, there's only the same people are in there. We don't have people kind of coming and going, traveling to the observatory. Just the same group of people running the telescope, collecting the data. So I have not operated the telescope. One day, maybe that'd be cool, but it's pretty daunting.
It's can imagine.
Complicated.
What are you talking about? You can only move it left and right.
Right?
Yeah, that's deceptive. It moves in unfamiliar ways.
It's an air hockey telescope, basically.
Yeah, basically.
So, but I have had objects get time. I have had some of my objects be observed with the HET, particularly M65, a galaxy in Leo, because Starlink passed through it, and I wanted to see how bad the effect would be. So I actually aimed where I knew Starlink was going to pass through. Or appeared in front of M65, and we took data and we saw the effects, and so we're kind of looking at how bad it is. Not as bad as I thought, because the HET has certain strengths which can kind of compensate for some of the effects of Starlink that other observatories won't be so lucky with. So we're lucky there. But yeah, the HET is being upgraded. The upgrade is still underway. It's been underway for a few years, but it's the basic premise of it is done. We're adding a bunch of spectrographs, which will break light apart into its component colors, and which makes it much easier to analyze. And we're adding a whole bunch of them, such that instead of an image, like, okay, let's say we aimed the Hobby Eberly telescope at this galaxy, M81. Instead of a picture, it would get 36,000 points across the image, and for each point, it would get a spectrum. And so you get what's called a data cube. So you have, like right now, you can see that there's blue here in the arm, as well as little pink regions. And I'll increase the saturation, I guess, to sort of highlight this difference a little more. You can kind of see. Yeah, all right. So you can kind of see that the spiral arms are blue, and they have little pink regions in them. And you can learn a lot about a galaxy by looking at the different lights. Yeah, there you go. You got a spectrum down there.
I do. This is from the APT itself. So.
Oh wow! Who did you steal that from, Joe?
I ganked it at my last visitors tour. No, but
I'm so happy that you used the term ganked. Thank you.
Is that LRS2 or is that HPF or?
This is the Hobby Eberly Telescope Dark Energy Experiment hit dex.
Oh, okay, so that's virus data. It's not usually how it's formatted, but you can kind of see that, like, so you have the lines below. Each one of those is a spectrum of a certain point, and he's got multiple points. So different places, you would say, that have the spectrum be different in a slightly different place. Now, in that case, you can represent just one point if that's all you care about. If all you care about is one little object. But in the case of like Galaxy, you can get essentially what his graph shows, but for 36,000 points simultaneously, which is more than any other telescope by far. So it's like taking a picture at all wavelengths simultaneously.
Wow.
It's really powerful, and the idea is we'll survey a bunch of very distant galaxies with HET-DEX, the Hobby Eberly Telescope Dark Energy Experiment, and it will we'll look at how fast the galaxies are moving away from us to measure the expansion of the universe, and thus figure out what is driving the acceleration of the expansion of the universe, aka what the heck is dark energy. So yeah, that's summarized a very complicated thing into a few minutes.
And let's all hope that they find it where Stephen is, because then that's another reason why the McDonald Observatory will be famous.
Absolutely. And yeah, and that's another thing that we really have to have dark skies for. Any amount of light pollution would significantly impact that project. And it's our biggest, most expensive project here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and
Will,
there is
you'd
a
have to
companion telescope.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah. Attended the Board of Visitors meeting just a few months ago. So that went over the course of a couple of days. And as a gift, they gave all the folks who participated in that one of these images. And, this was just kind of a gift for everyone, but listening in great detail what Stephen summarized there in just a minute or two, just absolutely fascinating. The science that's coming out of the observatory there is not only interesting, fascinating, it's critical, and helping us to kind of understand what's happening in our universe. And if you get a chance, support the observatory.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we go to McDonald'sObservatory.org. You can support us there and learn more about the HETDEX project. We have a press release on there as well.
Yeah, that's every year at Texas Star Party we take the tour. I do anyway. I've been on it like 40 times, but it's worth it because every year you go to Texas Star Party when there is a Texas Star Party. Every year you take the tour, there's another piece of the HETDEX experiment that's been added. So over the years I've watched that telescope be reconfigured for the HETDEX experiment. It's been absolutely fascinating. I mean, the thing is massive. It's not something that we could ever give you scale here for. You have to go visit this thing. It is definitely worth your time to drive out there. And you can go there you go, there's the grounds right there, and that's where you're in that little bitty
but there's the Hobby Epperly telescope. It's tied for the second largest in the world at the moment, and that's just up the hill from me.
Wow.
So
there's a sister one in South Africa.
SALT, the South African Large Telescope.
Which is a great name, the SALT, the South African Large Telescope. Astronomers are super creative with these names.
Yeah. The acronyms are everything.
Everything, yeah. I mean, we can't just have NASA be the only game in town with acronyms. I mean, come on. Okay, a couple more questions, and then we'll get on our way out of here. Does the local community around McDonald cooperate with lighting pollution? Absolutely. We got the light pollution expert, the man himself, right here, and they absolutely do, right, Stephen?
Yeah. So that's part of my job, really, is to ensure that the skies around the observatory remain dark for ongoing projects. So by law, the surrounding area has lights aimed down and shielded, which makes it's actually the largest area in the world that the night sky is protected by law. It's about 26,000 square miles. But I'm working on updating some of the ordinances and trying to get them to take into account kind of changes in technology, especially LEDs. But yeah, if you drive through Fort Davis, a local town here, you'll notice that it's not as bright as most towns are, but you can still see fine because the lights are aimed down. They're shielded. They're not overly bright, and they have a nice kind of amber glow that doesn't produce a lot of glare. It still allows you to see fine. So yeah, we have a lot of enthusiastic friends and neighbors around us who help keep the sky dark. I just came back today from Big Bend National Park as well. Not so far from here, where I'm trying to help them similarly keep the sky around their park dark, because it's helping them is the same as helping the observatory. It's all the same sky. We can see we share the same sky. So I do a lot of work cataloging light pollution and working with the surrounding communities, going to local people, sometimes just knocking on doors, not lately during COVID, but saying, hey, I noticed that maybe we could use some help, with this light fixture.
He's very passive aggressive. He's like, I noticed you really need help.
There's a certain art to it, Usually you show up with some brownies or a pie or something and a light bulb in your other hand and say,
yes,
hey, consider doing this. So
Stephen, can you go knock on the Luxor on their door? Be like, hey, can y'all stop pointing this massively, insanely
directly?
into the sky, please. I mean, I know it's Vegas, but come on.
That's a huge like risk for birds and stuff too. Like,
Exactly. Every time I've been to Vegas and looked at the Luxor at night, all it is this cloud above, a swirling cloud of birds. And they look like mist up there because there's so many of them, and it's so, it's a big place. That's the weirdest hotel, by the way, and I do not recommend staying there. I won't say why, just don't stay there. But it's just crazy, the birds, and they're just all over the place. And like you said, Stephen, that's a huge thing because they run into buildings, and in your video you cover that, how detrimental it can be for insects.
Like hundreds of millions of birds die each year just by being confused by lights. And it's a really big environmental issue. It could be catastrophic in a few years' time. It could throw ecosystems out of balance, honestly.
Absolutely.
Insects too. That's a huge thing. Anyway, I could go on. You watched my video.
I was going to say, there was a building in Galveston, not too far from us recently, that, Texas is a wonderful place for birding, and that's because of the migratory patterns kind of lead them through Texas, Southeast Texas, South Texas, and whatnot. But the lights do tend to affect their ability to find direction, and they'll fly into these buildings. And I think one night or over the course of a weekend, something like that, they counted a few thousand birds that had crashed into this building and died. So, as Stephen mentioned, not only does it have impacts on astronomy, there's certainly the ecological impact on, animals, insects, and whatnot. And they're finding more and more impact on human beings.
Absolutely.
And, disruption in our circadian rhythms. There are some studies done, I believe, in Spain, where they found kind of this exposure to blue light on a more constant basis. Those communities that had that tend to have higher rates and cases of cancer.
Yep.
So, certainly it's an interesting mix of amateur astronomer or professional astronomers, amateur astronomers, Audubon Society, and certain conservational groups, and the American Medical Association has recently come out with guidance on this as well. So hopefully people will start to heed this, and the International Dark Sky Association does a wonderful job of advocating for these dark skies. So if you can support them as well, I certainly do. And I would, encourage everybody else to just take a look at what they have. And, if it starts with what we can do with our own homes and our own properties and things like that. So, if we can make those changes and encourage our neighbors to do the same, that's a big step in the right direction.
It's one of those problems that could be solved, almost in a month or so if everyone just got on board. It starts just changing your light bulbs, putting in a better fixture, and problem solved if everyone did that. It's not like
and we can
solution where it's going to linger. It's going to be solved overnight.
We can literally overnight. We can all help because we're all contributing to this problem. If you leave your porch light on at night, if it's not shielded and directed down, you're part of the problem. If it is shielded and directed down, you're doing a responsible thing, and you're saving energy, like Stephen brings up in his video. You're saving the environment. You're saving a lot of things. So light pollution is a huge problem. All three of these guys on this panel, and I know most of y'all in the chat that have watched tonight, feel strongly about the nighttime sky. And if you do, then it really takes little to no effort to help in this way. And you don't need to donate money per se. If you don't have the ability to donate money, you can donate your time to learn this stuff and share it with others. Help your neighbors and your friends figure out their lighting. And that's what Stephen does. And you can reach out to Stephen and ask him questions. I mean, he laid it all out in that video, y'all. I'm telling you right now, that's the source for light pollution stuff. So go there and watch that video. Just put it on repeat. Put it on while you sleep. Let all that stuff get in your brain subliminal message style, and then you'll become an expert in no time on the light pollution problem. Okay, well, I mean, wow. 2 hours and 45 minutes we've been going here. So, Stephen, man, dude, thank you so much. Your expertise is always worth more than we could ever repay you for. 1,000 coffees to you, sir. I know you don't have a Starbucks nearby, but maybe we'll figure out a way to freeze some and bring it out to you. Freeze.
I have some good coffee shops here,
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll We'll freeze a vanilla latte and bring it out to you next time we come. But definitely give Stephen a follow. You can see his tag floating across the bottom down there at Hummel_Stephen. Don't forget the underscore. You'll get some weirdo probably. But that Hummel_Stephen is our man, Mr. Stephen Hummel. You can find him there on Instagram. Guys, check out his Instagram. He's always posting awesome pictures. He just went down to Big Bend, like he said. Great stuff on there. He's a master wide field photographer. A master telescope operator, and his eyes do glow when you meet him in person. You will see. It's very creepy. But Stephen, thank you so much again, man, for your time, your expertise. It really is. It's a fantastic thing. And Joe, thank you for joining us, man. I know you had to rush home from the gym to even get on here, but we appreciate that.
Always fun. Always a blast to be with you guys and with everybody else. And like I said, we joke around a lot with this, but the opportunity to share all of this information with everybody else out there is awesome. So really appreciate it. And hopefully you'd mentioned TSP. Hoping it happens this year. And if we get a chance, maybe an opportunity to see Stephen out there. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, TSP will be May 1st through the 9th or 2nd through the 9th?
Yeah,
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking it up because I was hoping to give a talk, but they're not going to have any in-person sort of meetings and things. So
that's right.
Well, seeing what we can do. But
yeah, so but that star party is going to happen, and I'm sure we'll probably have another one of these sessions, maybe before Texas Star Party again, because that's in May. We're in January. We still got a long time to go for that, and hopefully we'll have a vaccine in my. As soon as they tell me I can go get that thing, it's going in my arm. I can tell you that right now.
First.
I'm actually I'm already ahead of you in line, Joe. So. You're kind of screwed on that one, but and thank you to y'all for everyone who's joined us, Celsa, everybody in the chat room. There's so many of y'all that come and hang out with us from the word go to the word, like we've ran this thing into the ground. We've just been talking so long. We thank y'all. We thank y'all so much. Follow us online. You can, again, the thing scrolling at the bottom there has all of our social media stuff on there. And we would love to have y'all follow us. We all post really interesting stuff. We're all following each other. It's a big admiration society between all of us. So it's a good thing. And we'd love to have y'all around for that. And thank y'all so much for hanging out with us. Lift Stephen to Starbucks. That wouldn't be expensive at all. No, that wouldn't be. The nearest Starbucks is what? It's got to be El Paso.
Thing.
Yeah, there's not even one in Fort Stockton or Alpine. There should be one in Alpine. That's ridiculous.
I would think there isn't one in Alpine.
No.
Well, no, actually, there is one inside of Sol Ross. I think it's only open. It's a part of the school.
Yeah, but they always have those weird drinks that no regular Starbucks has, and you get it, and you're like, "This ain't a vanilla latte. What is this? This ain't a vanilla latte." But yeah, I guess there technically is one at Sol Ross, which is a great college down there. Been there a few times myself. Again, thank y'all for hanging out with us. Thank y'all for the likes, the shares, the comments. You guys hanging out in the chat room make this so much fun for us because without it would just be us three dudes yelling at each other about photons and stuff and distances, which we're all tired of doing that. That's why we're here with you guys. So thank y'all again. Be sure to follow us on all the social medias. And, hopefully we'll get to do one of these again in the future as our schedules all allow us to do it. And that's really all I have. Keep the skies dark, guys. Keep the skies dark as best you can. Wear your mask, wash your hands. We're almost through this. We're going to be able to hang out in person soon, sooner rather than later now. I think we're through. We're over the hump. If we can just keep doing the right thing, we're going to be back in person again. We'll be going to concerts. We'll all be tired of it by the end of it. And I can't wait. So, thank you guys for hanging out again. Thank you to my panel here of awesome dudes. Follow us online. Like Bob said, blame Travis if a Starlink happens to go through your sky. And we will, I guess we'll see y'all on the flip side on the next one. So have a good evening, guys. We'll see y'all next time.
Take care.